Good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm not going to fiddle with the mic too much to start, but how are we doing this morning? It's lively. It's lively here this morning. For folks online, welcome as well. I'm your MC for this morning. Before I introduce myself, I want to welcome you all to Bayview Yards and Invest Ottawa, and most importantly, International Women's Month. Like I mentioned, I'm your MC this morning. My name is Lindsay Kavanagh. I'm the Senior Manager of Digital Marketing at Invest Ottawa. My job for today is going to keep us on time and on schedule, which means we're a little doomed, but that's okay. Just cancel your afternoon. It's fine. We'll be fine. No, don't cancel it. You're fine. It'll be fine. I've got timestamps. We're good. We're thrilled to have women, business leaders, founders, stakeholders, partners, sponsors, investors, thought leaders, everyone from all over Ottawa and the country itself here today for International Women's Month and our first event of the month. I was going to take a note of Celine Dion in her concert. She will welcome the audience. She'll say, "This is for the parents and the children." It's everyone. But figured I'd map everyone out individually. So before we start, I want to start off with our land acknowledgement. So I'm going to invite Sonya, Shorey, President and CEO of Invest Ottawa, to come up and do that before we get started.
Good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you, Lindsay. Before we begin today's very special event, I want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We're very grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory and to come together as a community. Further, I want to respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples across this land. We recognize the contribution of Métis, Inuit, and all Indigenous peoples have and continue to make, both in shaping and strengthening this community and our country as a whole.
Sonya and I are going to be fiddling with this a little bit today. So before we jump in, I just want to say thank you all for joining us today. We have tons of events going on this month here at Invest Ottawa and with a lot of partners and stakeholders as well. So if you haven't already, you can check out the website. All of our community events can be found at investottawa.ca/IWM-events. So please check it out. There's tons of opportunity to network, meet new people, participate in really important events this month. In terms of some background, when I first started at Invest Ottawa, we were observing International Women's Day at the time. That was about 5-6 years ago. And then it transitioned to International Women's Week because we just had so much that we wanted to pack it into 1 week. And then we were like, we should probably just change this to be a month. So welcome to International Women's Month. Yes. Because one day, it's just not enough for one day, right? We need more than that. So I want to appreciate you guys for joining us to kick everything off. In terms of housekeeping for around here today as well. So bathrooms, there are bathrooms over here and downstairs as well, if anyone needs those. There's gender neutral and accessible bathrooms as well. We've got catering up here by Delights by Mama. So if any of you want to grab catering during the event, please feel free to go and grab some. It looks delicious. And then there's coffee over here as well. There is decaf. When I was told there was decaf, I was like, who needs decaf? And then I was like, oh, I probably should stick to the decaf. It would sound like Storage Wars up here if I was drinking the full calf at this point. Just really on time. Yeah. So that's part of the housekeeping. Other sections. So we'll be taking questions in the last 10 minutes of each of our panels and discussions today. There'll be a mic put out in the audience that folks can line up at. So if you want to ask a question, just keep your eye out for the mic. Hopefully we have enough time to take all the questions that come in. If we don't, there's networking portions built into today as well. So hopefully you'll be able to chat directly with whoever you had a question for. Seats. We've got a pretty full house, which is great. So I had a note to potentially move people up because sometimes we have people in the back. Anyways, this looks great. There's going to be photos and videos taken all day. So if you're looking for a new LinkedIn photo, I got mine here last year. So smile for the camera. Hoping for a new one. Smile for the camera. We've got video being taken as well. We're live streaming on YouTube, like I mentioned. So the recording will be available for folks that are here in person and anyone online, and anyone who missed the live event, you'll have access to that after. There's a survey that's going to go out for feedback on today's event. Obviously, it's a 10 out of 10 so far. But there will be a survey. It actually was sent out this morning as well. You got an email really early this morning with it as well. So again, we love feedback. So feel free to give it even before the event is over. If you have something that pops in your head, you've got access to that link and you'll get it after as well. Social media, we've got a light box in the lobby of the Bayview here. We would love for you all to take photos in front of the light box. We have a photographer, a volunteer. Oh, he's standing over there. Hey, he's waving. We've got a volunteer to take photos of you guys if you'd like. So again, make use of it and tag us on social if you are posting. The hashtags for this year, IWM 2025 and Accelerate Action. I think that's it for housekeeping. I think we're good. There's no like oxygen masks that are going to deploy, and there's nothing taped under your seats. It's all pretty standard programming for today. I was talking to Sonya before we started this morning, and the past few years when we've run events, we always talk about how it's unprecedented times. And this morning, Sonya and I were like, for real, this time, for real, this time we mean it. It's unprecedented times. And I was watching, I'm sure everyone had their own, as I was pumping up to be your MC this morning, I was watching the Nike ads, if anyone saw the Nike Super Bowl ad this year. I was watching it on the way in, I was on the LRT, kind of like tearing up in my seat. It's a very impactful ad, but there was a line from it that I wanted to reiterate to everyone in the audience here today. People will be quick to tell you to learn your place, and it's important that you know your place is first. It's important that we know that this morning. I got chills reading it. Again, it's Nike, not me. Don't credit me with that one. In terms of today, we're going to have a lot of impactful discussions, a lot of impactful networking. We've got a great agenda planned for today and this month. The objectives we're pursuing together have never been more important. We're proud to collaborate with you, our champions and allies who join us today, our community, and so many members of our ecosystem, our board of directors, mentors, advisors, sponsors, partners, investors, and investors including the City of Ottawa, Province of Ontario, the Government of Canada, including FedDev Ontario, and our team, the employees of IO and Bayview who drive action on these goals through programs and services we deliver each day. Just want to acknowledge that. It's going to take a sustained collaboration to realize the vision and our community is founded on it. You'll experience this today and in the weeks ahead as we progress through a shared vision with many IWM events. We have over 25 on the calendar this month, so there's no shortage of stuff to do this month. And this vision is what underpins our launch event today. So without further ado, welcome to the F Factor. That brings me to the end of my jokes and notes for so far. So I'm going to bring Sonya Shorey back up on stage to kick off with our presentation on our journey.
All right. My goodness, unprecedented times. When I think back, I sat in this foundry 6 or 7 years ago. We were just beginning as a new leadership team. We were working on our strategic plan, and we had 100 women from different walks of life that were aspiring to launch or had established businesses that were very angry. They were very hurt. There was a great deal of pain because they didn't see themselves here at Invest Ottawa. They didn't see themselves in our staff and our mentors. They didn't feel at home in our programs or in our facility. And that catalyzed a very big goal that underpinned the work that we've undertaken together with and for our community over the last 7 years. It was a journey that started with the establishment of our Women Founders and Owners Subcommittee, led by Susan Richards, our former chair, who is with us today. And we set out to build out an action plan. Yes, she does deserve applause. She does deserve applause. If you don't have visionary leaders who believe in you, if you don't have investors who will fuel you, your dream is lost. And so it took all of that critical mass and deep collaboration with our community. And step by step, over the last 7 years, we have been working diligently with our entire ecosystem to drive change. And when Lindsay says it is truly unprecedented times, there are no truer words. I vowed I would never use that phrase again, but there is truly no other phrase that I can use. Canada stands at an economic crossroads with a population of 40 million people compared to 330 in the US as an example. It will take every single person to contribute to our economy in meaningful ways in order to make us the strongest, most competitive, most economically prosperous country in the world. And I truly believe in that vision. And Invest Ottawa's commitment and responsibility is to help make sure that we fuel part of that dream and that vision here in Canada's capital with women founders and entrepreneurs from every walk of life. It is absolutely imperative. I know that there is even greater pain than what we saw 6 or 7 years ago in our community today. And we are committed and will stay true to our values to driving forward with men, women, and non-binary individuals working together to ensure everyone has the opportunity to grow, thrive, and succeed and make a contribution to our economy. It's always been about merit. Anyone who tells you otherwise is false. Economic case for action and for women being a part of our economy, 150 billion in GDP could be found by fully utilizing women's economic potential, stat from McKinsey. 100 billion in impact from unleashing immigrant entrepreneurship, stat from the Conference Board of Canada, and 270 billion in gains from upskilling, workforce innovation, productivity with people from every walk of life. So don't tell me that there's not incredible economic impact, because that is what we are all about here at Invest Ottawa, and that is the journey that we are on today. And you are going to hear us drive that messaging as loudly and as collaboratively and impactfully as we can. I wanted to share these opening remarks before we dive into the journey today. Thank you for being here. As I noted, 7 years ago, we started with the grain of an idea that we could empower, accelerate more women founders from every walk of life to contribute to our economy, to get the investment that they required to succeed, to access the mentors and the expertise that they required. And with our amazing venture development team working hand in hand with so many clients, investors, and others across our community, we started on this journey. In 2019, we established our Women Founders and Owners Subcommittee of the board. These are champions and leaders who lean in and do heavy lifting together with us every single day. This is not a committee that is there for prestige. They are there to roll up their sleeves and get it done. And on this chart, you will see Susan Richards, our former chair, and another inaugural member, Sarah Roach-Lewis, who have just retired after 7 years of diligent work together with us. And they are going to be collaborating in many different ways going forward. Every single one of these leaders, together with so many others in this room and across our community, are a part of driving the change and the impact that we seek to continue achieving. This is a really important slide, and I do want to pause here. We are here for all women, and when we use that term, we truly refer to all individuals who identify as women. This includes women of color, transgender women, and women with gender diverse identities, including gender non-conforming women. We know that gender is fluid and can change throughout one's lifetime. We also know these women have historically and systematically been excluded from many mainstream programs, services, and opportunities. Invest Ottawa does not claim to get it always right. We do not have all the answers, and I don't believe there's a silver bullet. But what I will say is we're making a concerted effort with intention to work together with people with lived experience to prioritize equity, access, and inclusion in everything we do to create the most prosperous city and economy we can. And our goal is to ensure that anyone who would like to access our programs and services feels welcomed, feels a sense of belonging. You are here and you belong here. Our Women Founders and Owners strategy was founded on 3 key goals with measurable outcomes that we felt a big accountability to report back to annually every single year at the opening of International Women's Month. So this is the 7th year that we have done this. We originally wanted to establish the foundation, building a pipeline of women founders and the value that Invest Ottawa could play as part of that collaborative role. Medium term from 22 to 24, driving measurable progress towards those goals. We are benchmarking what we do. Again, it's not perfect. We are on a journey to increase our self-identification practices across every single one of our venture programs. It's a journey. And lastly, in long term, from 2025, the year we are in now, and no greater call to action to expand our global leadership and collaboration, sharing best practices, and inspiring and providing actionable insight to everyone who shares these goals, not just here in our city or across the country, but around the world. Our strategy was founded on 4 key prongs: to promote, to educate, to equip, and connect women, founders, and entrepreneurs, both current and aspiring. And those are the pillars on which everything you will see today are built. How do we support founders? Venture development team in this room, please raise your hand, stand up so that everyone can see who you are, because this team delivers what I am about to share with you. We've got Nick, our VP, so many of our team members here today. I want to give them a big shout out and thank them with all my heart for the work that they do every single day. They bring these values to their work and drive impact together with and for you. We have 2 sides of our venture development house. We have our entrepreneurship team. That is dedicated to Main Street companies, bricks and mortar, e-commerce-based businesses. Going to do a little shout out. We got an e-commerce pilot that's about to roll. We've got some spots available. We want to support you and help to grow your e-commerce business. So check it out online. Opportunity for any type of company, whether it's hospitality, restaurant, retail. They are here to help you launch, grow, and succeed with programs like Starter Company Plus, Summer Company, our education center, free education every single day of the year practically, led by experts available to everyone in our community. You're going to see us promote that even more, and advisory services. Then we have our venture team. We have our Venture Path and Venture Services, and they come together to support tech companies launch, grow, and scale from I have a little idea, I'm scribbling on the back of a napkin, it's just an idea, all the way through to 100 million in revenue. And you're going to hear about what these programs have delivered together with and for women founders today. Beginning with our IO Ignition program, this is the program that is designed to help founders who are just getting started build a solid business foundation. It is one of the most oversubscribed programs I think that we have at Invest Ottawa. For 20 seats that we have, because it's an intimate and very engaging and interactive program, so it can't be larger than 20. We get anywhere from 80 to 100 applications every single quarter now. It's amazing. And over the course of 2024, 35 companies that participated in Ignition had at least one woman founder or co-founder, and that represents 45% of the company's total. And we host a pitch competition. It's epic. I love it. The energy in this foundry, it's full, friends and fans cheering on. 37% of the companies that were winners in our Ignition pitch competition were led by a woman or co-founder or founder. Simply awesome. This is building the pipeline, and that investment is required so that we get companies that are led and owned by women at the scaling stages. A little bit of benchmark data here, 145 companies total since Ignition launched that were led by a woman co-founder or founder. 41% of all of those companies during that time. And when you look collectively over the last 6 years, 48% of all our pitch winners were women founders and co-founders. These stats are awesome. So I thank our team for helping to drive this pipeline and this impact. IO Flex is the opportunity for companies that want to choose and select the type of opportunities, resources, advisory services that they receive when they need it, as they need it. I call it choose your own adventure. I don't know if Nick likes that very much, but it's self-directed and self-guided, an enterprising community where there's lots of perks and lots of networking and opportunities. Companies that come out of Ignition start here. In 2021, Flex was established. 150 companies today have at least one woman founder or co-founder in Flex, and that's about 26% of the total companies. And we're committed to helping to grow that number. Our IO Accelerator, this is all about product market fit. If you have early market traction and you're looking to broaden and develop sustainable scaling growth, this is the program that for you. It is milestone-based, criteria-driven, and it's very competitive. When I first started back in 2017, 2018, and we were just getting the accelerator program started, we might have had one or two companies that had a woman somewhere within their team. Today, 16 companies that are in our accelerator have at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP. It's a massive jump forward, and this is a really critical stage. And this is a stage where you're seeing a lot of job creation and investment attraction. 55% of our IO accelerator companies out of the total number have those founders, and 24% have at least a founder or a co-founder who is a woman. It's amazing. So sincere thanks again for the progress on our accelerator. And you can see the progression. What's really exciting to me is now that we are several years into our journey with you, you've got benchmark data that goes back several years. And so I'm thrilled to see in 2020, 19%. And we thought that was promising, particularly given where we started. And now we're at 55%. We'll continue to benchmark this data. IO scale up, you're at 2 million in revenue and you're on a path to 100 million. You require a very different set of specialized targeted services and support to help tip that balance in your favor and help you accelerate that growth as quickly as possible. This is another really big win, in my opinion, and something I'm really encouraged about. Again, always a journey. 36 of our technology companies in our IO Scale-Up program had at least one woman founder, co-founder, C-suite, or VP, and that's 68% of those companies. That is awesome. And 15% have at least one founder or co-founder. This has been with intention. And what I said earlier about building the pipeline all the way from Ignition, all the way through, we see companies that started out like the grocer and Alita Burke, who is the co-founder of that amazing company that started back with us. I don't even think I was employed at Invest Ottawa back then. It goes all the way back when they were in Ottawa U. We see the difference that making that early investment makes, and it's delivering results. And here you can see the benchmark data. Again, 2021, only 21% of the companies that we served had that constitution of women within their leadership team, and today 68%. We don't expect these numbers will stay consistent. There's going to be ebbs and flows. There's things we can't control, particularly in this current environment, which is very dynamic and unpredictable. There are always things economically that influence numbers. What I can say is that doesn't change our commitment and our drive to continue delivering on this journey. I'm going to move now to the non-tech side of our entrepreneurship services team. Starter Company Plus is an amazing and also oversubscribed program. We had 700 people on the waiting list for this program this year. Unbelievable. And 200 applications that came through. 63% of those participants this year self-identified as women. And that is self-identified client data, so really strong from a data perspective. 63% of the expected grant recipients, there's still some grants to be determined on Wednesday, so I certainly don't want to circumvent process, but they're amazing founders, and so we're very confident. At a minimum, what I can say is 19 grants awarded in cohort 1, 5 additional expected in cohort 2, and that will be 95,000 awarded to date, and it'll be 120,000 if all of those founders are successful. Absolutely critical capital to support these founders within the non-tech businesses. They're at the heart of our community that create the experiences we rely on, that we love, that make Ottawa what it is. And then wanted to give you this benchmark data. Really exciting to see that it has been very consistent overall in terms of the types of fund and awards that we have granted. 66% funded in cohort 1. Again, I don't want to circumvent process because that would be wrong, but that number will jump this Wednesday, we fully expect. Summer companies, student entrepreneurs, we are really passionate about making sure that we're infusing that entrepreneurial journey with students that are coming up through our post-secondary programs. The opportunity to pursue that as a career is something that sparks the idea that leads to future companies here in our city. We had 150 summer company applications, and out of the 29 that were selected, 15 were women, 51% parity. Amazing. And similar on the grant front. So that very same percentage received grants, and 45,000 were awarded to women founders in our summer company program. I'm going to do a big shout out. I know Julia Elvidge is here with us. Jennifer Francis is in Chile. She's missing International Women's Month. We let her know we're going to continue driving forward, and we'll have lots of stories to share when she's back. Sheboot is a very special program. It is designed to help more women get funded by getting more women investing. With Julia and Jennifer and I, we came together on the heels of some very challenging moments during a period in 2019 after we had seen a pitch competition in our ecosystem that had some incredible meritorious men that took away almost $1 million in funding, and it was totally earned. But we wanted to change that landscape. We wanted to change and make sure that we saw women on those stages acquiring that investment that they need to launch, grow, and scale. And so Sheboot was dedicated to achieve this objective. And it started with a whole lot of heavy lifting between the Capital Angel Network and Invest Ottawa, our venture development team. Fast forward 6 years, it's now a standalone not-for-profit corporation, and you will see some of the results that it has helped to catalyze for everyone in this room and across our community who is a Sheboot champion, investor, mentor, advisor. There are so many people. This is the program that love built. It really is. I thank you. Here's what Sheboot has achieved, building on the genesis of all of the hard work as a community. 52 women angel investors, 65 program graduates, 1.3 million invested from women in this community and across the country out of their own pocket to support those women-led companies. The number we're allowed to share, because let me tell you, it's higher. I'm just not allowed to say this. 35 million raised by Sheboot alumni. You're going to add a whole lot onto that because that's the reality. So I'm incredibly proud for the work that we have done together as a community. And we have one of our Shebooters here today to interview Katherine from Sheertex. So get ready. She's going to knock your socks off. International Women's Month is all about opportunity, and so Sheboot is launching its applications for its next cohort on April 1st. We're also looking for investors. You can use this QR code, and tomorrow night, please join us, Tech Tuesday, with Wesley Clover, Canada North Business Association, Elspark, Sheboot, Capital Angel Network, and Invest Ottawa. There's going to be 4 amazing local women founders who are pitching on their stage in front of 300 people for $10,000, generously donated by Elspark. We are very grateful. So you will see some of our Sheboot graduates there as well. Lastly, it starts from the inside and works out. If we aren't living the values that we profess to be driving forward together with our community, it is a failure from day dot. So we looked carefully at our governance and our operations when we decided to make women founders and entrepreneurs and our commitment to inclusion, access, and opportunity for all part of our strategic plan so many years ago. We had a goal in our guidelines that were established to promote and work very diligently to get parity on our board of directors. We have 5 acclaimed positions. We're very privileged to have the presidents and chancellors of the post-secondaries here in Ottawa and our mayor as our co-chair. So those seats are acclaimed. We recognize that we don't have the ability to recruit for those. However, we have stayed true to our values and have had parity across the last several years for the positions that we can recruit for. Today, 47% of our total board identify as women. That's 8 out of 17 directors as of December 24. Giovanna Mingarelli has just stepped down because she is running for public office. We could not be more proud. We need more women in politics guiding policy in this country to ensure every single voice and opportunity is pursued to make us a stronger economy. So we're very, very grateful for the work that our board, all of our investors, and our team have done to support this. Within the Invest Ottawa team, 66% of our employees identify as women. That's self-identified. 59 out of 89 FTEs, long-term contracts, and students. And at the executive level, we have 50%. I am, in fact, the first woman to hold the position of president and CEO in the history of Invest Ottawa or OCRE. So it's a privilege. It's a privilege and a great responsibility and something that I see as a life mission. I'm very dedicated to this role and I love collaborating with and for the team that I have the privilege of working with and for the community that we serve. Lastly, 50% of Invest Ottawa's advisors identified as women as of December 2024. For context, in 2017, this number was 10%. Dismal. So thank you very, very much to everyone in this room. It is a journey. We have a long way to go. We have a lot of challenges ahead, but I firmly believe there is a wealth of opportunity and this community is leading the way. We will share our best practices, our insight, and we will contribute to Canada as a sovereign, strong, thriving economy always. We couldn't do it without you. There's so much more. We are listening, we are here, and we want your ideas and your feedback, not just today, but all year long. This is not work we do during a single month. We do it together 12 months of the year. It's shining a spotlight on all of you, the women founders and companies that we do it for. Featured leaders, you're going to see them all through this beautiful month. Yuban Lee, Sarah Sedgman on our stage today, France Hébert, Justine Hendricks, and Denise Nadon. They have many, many powerful stories, secrets of success, and opportunities for you to learn. I cannot wait to see them profiled. Thank you and welcome to International Women's Month 2025.
We're running so on schedule. It's crazy. Wow. I want to see who was at F Factor here last year. Okay, repeat customers, love it. Yeah, you'll remember last year I had a co-MC who bought a ticket for today, or got a ticket for today and is not here. And I had a bit planned to like make fun of her. Because last year we had joked, okay, if we get asked back, it means we played it too safe, thinking like the Oscars and the Emmys where like the host comes, does a really good job, they don't get asked back because it was too good. Anyway, she was not asked back. I was asked back. She's coming. Yeah, well, I bullied her and she's not even here, but I have to stick to the script that I wrote. So here we are. Before I bring up our panel, I actually wanted to see as well, who here has been part of an Invest Ottawa program, is in a program, has been to a workshop. So if your hand is not up, take a look at the folks who have their hand up and give them a little chat during our networking break, because they'll be able to tell you all about what we have here. So without further ado, we're going to do some rejigging on the stage here. For folks that are standing, there's some Invest Ottawa staff over there that can stay standing. But if you're not Invest Ottawa staff, you can if you want. But we're going to rejig the stage and welcome up our panel. So the moderator of our panel is Andrea. And we've got some incredible guests that she's going to be welcoming up here. Andrea is actually the Director of Venture Services with Invest Ottawa. And we're also going to be welcoming up Kelly, Holly, Monica, and Sarah for the next panel discussion. So let's give them a warm welcome.
Very good. Just let them get set. Am I good? Yes, I am. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea. As Lindsay mentioned, I'm super happy to be here. I'm really excited to be hosting this panel of amazing female Ottawa leaders. We're going to have some great questions and really try to make this fun, as well as talk about some really interesting challenges that we have with women and leaders. So we have a lot to cover today. The other thing is I'm going to be timekeeper, so I've got my watch out. Don't be surprised if I have to move you along just a little bit during this. As well, we do have time at the end for questions from the audience. We'll be setting up a microphone at the back, and feel free to ask questions. So we're going to get started. I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Sarah Sedgman.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everyone. And I'm Sarah Sedgman. I spent 25 years in tech. I've spent 25 years in tech. I moved to Ottawa to work for a company called Cognos as an instructional designer, and then worked for a number of different companies, some based in the US, running some of the largest learning organizations across the industry. In 2019, decided to take a huge leap of faith and leave my corporate positions as an executive and found Learn Experts. I was part of the Ignition program, so I came and started here at Invest Ottawa. And flash forward to today, we have an amazing LEA platform that speeds up the time it takes to develop courses by 67%. We have lots of large clients now. We've done 2 fundraisers. Some folks in the room here who've invested in us, women investors as well. And we're on the road to accelerate.
One thing I forgot to ask, can you tell us one thing that, something that brings joy to your life right now?
Joy to my life is definitely my family. When I'm not working a long day, I have refuge in just hanging out with my family. I'm a hockey mom, so I spend a lot of time in the hockey rink.
Amazing, thank you. Kelly, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us something that gives you joy in your life?
Okay. Well, first of all, good morning. It's so good to see everybody smiling and caffeinated and warm. I too also have a kind of a similar background. 25 years in tech. Started out working in big corporate companies. And in 2017, joined a company called Tricycle. Before it had a name. So Tricycle is a company dedicated to trying to break the cycle of addiction, mental health, loneliness, and isolation. And we do that by bridging people and technology. And something that brings me joy is connection. I love connecting to community, to family, to nature. I love events like this because I get to connect to a bunch of strangers in a really intimate way. So connection is really important.
Thank you. Holly, we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, good morning. Well, I too have 25 years, which makes me feel a little older than I'd like to think I feel. I've always been in Ottawa. I started my career as a developer and within about 2 months realized that is not my jam, and immediately sort of switched over into product management, which has led most of my career. I worked at startups, I've worked at local companies. I had the great opportunity of working at, I'm going to say, one of the successful companies of Ottawa, Halogen, where we had 50% women in our C-suite, which is an amazing encouragement. I've been in product management, product marketing, and dabbed over to the learning space. Most of my career, I've been in learning tech. And so I'm now currently head of marketing at Lemonade, another local Ottawa company. I'm a huge fan of Ottawa companies. I'm a huge, I fangirl over Invest Ottawa. It's the most amazing place, honestly. I love it so much. And I'm really just honored to be here. What brings me joy, I have 2 teenage daughters who ignore me. But they're young women, and I love watching them grow. And I know this kind of sounds corny because of the theme, but there's nothing that really brings me greater joy than watching them grow and watching women succeed. And I will tell you, and I'm sure I'll get to it, I was not always that way, right? Women used to be my competition, and now I spend most of my time trying to really push women forward. So I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Monica,
Hi.
same thing. Would you introduce yourself and tell us one thing that brings joy to your life?
Yeah, thank you. Wow, 25 plus years. I feel dated. So my name is Monica. I'm super passionate about putting HR, human resources. I've been in HR in multiple industry, different roles. Something I'm truly passionate about is working with people. And what I mean by that is really genuinely caring for them. And in HR, we deal with so many difficult things and emotional things, but just keeping it together and going one day at a time. Something that brings me joy. I'm a new mom. I have a 15-month-old little girl. I love my family, a little blended family. My husband, I met him in Ottawa. Really, Ottawa has a very special place in my heart, not because I met my life partner here, but I moved here. One of the very first jobs, somebody who took a chance at me, was a woman who started her company, a HR staffing agency in materials handling in her garage. And she was a single mom, started really passionate about changing the industry and leading with so much passion. And she really motivated me to do better things in life. So first thing, I was in Huntsville, middle of nowhere. Picked me up from there, moved me to Invest Ottawa. So Invest Ottawa and I go back like 2017 when we were in Aberdeen Street, a lot of familiar faces. So grew up in Ottawa with Invest Ottawa and have such a special place in my heart for Invest. So thank you so much for inviting me here. So humbled to be sitting next to such amazing panelists and contributing and learning today.
Amazing. Well, let's get to some of the questions. One of the themes of today's, this month's event is fearless. Could you share a significant barrier you had in your career and how you overcame it? Kelly, do you want to start?
We didn't rehearse this. Wow. So pinpointing one moment of kind of feeling fearless doesn't exist because it happens every day. I've been in positions of, I started out as a receptionist. I'm now a COO of a successful tech company. Fear is okay. Fear is important, and fear is an emotion we need to accept. It's the lack of fear, I think, that can be dangerous. So I'll share an example early on in my career. Something I struggled with when I first started out. My very first company I worked for was a startup. So I got a taste of the startup world right out of college. I loved it. I loved the energy. I loved the vibe of it. Very small company. I got an opportunity to work in New York City for a small company, small organization called the United Nations. Was pretty excited to take it, super excited, until I got there and I was terrified. I thought, what the heck? They made the wrong decision. Why did they give me this job? I cannot do this. There's no way I'm doing this. I got on the plane. I was terrified. What I learned early on was I was afraid of my own voice. I was afraid of speaking up. I was very comfortable in written communications. I was very confident behind the scenes. But to actually go and lead a team of 25 people that were all older than me, I felt terrified. And I used that fear to get a little less afraid every day. And the only way you kind of get through that is by doing. So you have to do, you have to try, you have to push through the fear, and you have to build confidence through fear. So here we are today on a stage. and yeah, just kind of finding that opportunity to hear your voice and be comfortable with your own voice.
Thank you. Holly.
I had a really polished answer, but I'm going to change it up. You said confidence. I was terrified of public speaking. I was terrified of being heard, to be honest. And I was 23, 24. I was working at a startup. We were pitching to RBC. We were like a small team. We had worked all night making sure this demo worked, and I was doing the demo. terrified of being in this room. It was an auditorium and they were all watching us, and it failed. It didn't work. And to be honest, I've never admitted this. I think I pressed the wrong button. This is literally the first time I've admitted this. It went horrible. The fine people said, "Would you like to take a break?" To which I said, "Yes, please." I was sweating, ran into the bathroom, bawled my eyes out. And this woman walked in and she said, "Don't worry about it, just go back and do it again." And I did. And she gave me the courage to do that. I went from being terrified of public speaking or doing anything like that. Anything, it's one of the biggest fears of adults. To now sitting here, I'm comfortable going on stage. I'm dorky. I say awkward things, and that's totally okay. But it's getting that confidence and having that woman in the washroom who has no idea what she did for me by telling me just to go back in and do it again. So just push through the fear. What's the worst that's going to happen? You cry in a bathroom. Like, it's okay. You'll get over it. It'll be fine.
I love it. I love it. Sarah.
Yeah, I would say I had barriers throughout my whole career, still today. I excelled fast in my career, became a C-level executive by age 40. I'm 4'10" woman. So I was often in the room with very tall men. But I just embraced, I guess, challenges, and I pushed through. And I found some really great women mentors. It's funny, often I would say, I need a mentor, and men would say, "Oh, you need this woman as a mentor." I'm like, well, why can't I have a man mentor? But I did find a lot of connection with women mentors who also had the same challenges. And one said to me at one point, just act like you're at the next level. Act there. You might not feel comfortable. You might be scared. You might not know what to do, but look around the room at people who are at the next level from you and act like them. And I held true to that. I would listen, learn. Sometimes I would go and ask a lot of advice. And I would just act bigger. And I would say today that holds true with Learn Experts. We started with 3 people, Leah's back there, at Invest Ottawa in the Ignition program. And today we have 70 huge customers like Salesforce and OpenText and Cisco. And we just had to act big and confident that our solution was what the market needed. So I'd say I had several barriers, but I always used probably the same strategy to get through.
Amazing. Thank you. Monica.
Yeah, thank you. For me, my journey was like many of you guys in the room. I moved from India 10 plus years ago, almost 12 years ago. For me, the biggest barrier was overcoming my own fears, making such a bold move later on in my career. I did my bachelor's in computer science, so I am a software developer, you could say that, used to be. Made a pivot to HR very quickly and grew into the role, did a lot of great things, but then after 5 years, my dad asked me, it's like, what do you want to do? And it's a big question. A lot of individuals, women in my culture can understand. 25, I was like, do you want to get married or do you want to do something with your life? And my dad is a big believer. He's a feminist. He's all about women empowerment. So first option was not an option for him. So he was hoping that I would say the second, which I did. And we started looking through universities. It was great. Picked a course, picked a program, made the move. And God, I cannot tell you how scared I was, how nervous I was. Everything in my power at the Toronto airport was saying, let's just go back. This is a bad idea. I don't know anybody in this country. I have no roots. I don't know if, like, I know a lot of Indian communities are around here, but I was in the middle of nowhere, far away from Toronto. So long story cut short, a lot of fear. I said yes to a lot of things after school, saying to yes to, and mind you, 2015, 2016, unpaid co-ops were still a thing back then, by the way. I did them. I did many of them because I was so hungry to learn. And I knew I had to start from scratch, like many others, right? So I didn't say no to anything. I did not set standards for myself. I said, I'm just going to dive right in and do it all. And little that I knew, I did a big disservice to myself. I was burned out. I was struggling. I did not know how to effectively communicate that I was struggling. And that was the time when one of my professors in school that I was still in touch with, he suggested I should meet other people who are with the same career aspiration. Hence, I met my first mentor who told me I'm in my head many times. Many times I had to stop talking to myself about things that I can potentially and actually can do, but talking myself out of them before I even done them. So I think learning very early on, the barriers are more internally too, that we don't self-advocate. We don't go out of our way to push ourselves and embrace change and say, you know what, change is good. It's going to bring me something fun. And I think approaching life like that was not an option until I met someone who didn't look like me, who told me that it's okay to feel the way you feel. It's okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to not know everything. And it's okay to ask for help. And I think that changed my life. And I invested so much time in building these support system for myself over the course of last 10 plus years. And I'm so fortunate men and lots of women are in these circles, and I welcome everybody. And I think it just showed me the level of empathy and compassion we have for one another that helped me overcome my fear. So one thing I would say that you can do is create that support system for yourself and continue to like talk that inside voice out and say, I got this, I deserve this, and I don't need to listen to this inside voice anymore.
Thank you. Love the perspectives. Great perspectives. Moving on to the next question. You've all made the leap to leadership. The Women in the Workforce 2024 report from McKinsey found that young women are very susceptible to ageism, which we would think mostly impacts older workers. Based on your own experience, what advice do you have for women early in their careers to advance their careers? Sarah, can we start with you?
Sure. My advice would be go for it. I think Heidi, you were saying it earlier, you know, make your own experiences, build your own career, have a vision for where you want to go and go for it. Don't live by fear. And I think there's all sorts of different factors within companies, within large companies, where, you know, other people might try and make you feel like you're inadequate, but don't listen to them. And, you know, I saw a quote, I think it was last week on LinkedIn. It was like, nobody can make you feel inadequate. You decide. And that would be my advice, is just, you know, if you want to do something, go for it, work at it. I will say women have to work at it and prove themselves, but we do it. We do it over and over. Improving yourself gives you those opportunities. I was always working at my job, and once I got that going, I'd have that going, and I'd look throughout the organization, like, what are all the other exciting initiatives I could do? And I just inserted myself. I'd say, I'll volunteer to do that. I'll work at night. I don't care. I want to work on some exciting things. And then people would get to know me, and they would understand my value that I brought. And that would open the door for other opportunities. So that would be my advice. Just go for it.
Thank you. Monica.
Wow, love that question. Something that we have seen often. So I'll share a story. Let's just start with the story where Joe was the C-level executive, and I'm just masking the name for protection. But Joe and I work together, and working in HR, often I get to attend a lot of board meetings, meet a lot of amazing people, and Joe was one of the very senior manager in the team. So this was my first meeting at the company, and I was introduced to all the leaders. We had a great meeting. I was so excited, so prepared, you know, full of energy going to the meeting. First surprise, I was the only girl there. That was eye-opening experience for me. Most of the time I stayed quiet, but the meeting, in my books, I thought we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. After the meeting, it was meet and greet. I was grabbing a coffee, and this manager, Joe, wonderful guy. I love this human and we are very good friends, but we'll still talk about it. So Joe came to me and Joe said, little to no hesitation, he's like, wow, that was awesome. Lovely to meet you. How old are you? And I was like jaw dropped, on the inside, I died a little bit. And I said, wow, that's it, eh? Like that's great. So I very politely responded to his question. We talked about family. We talked about my background. We got to know each other a little bit. I go back to my office, sat down with my thoughts for a second and really let it sink in for me. And I had a choice to make. How am I going to respond to this? Because my mom always asked me, whenever I came home with a problem, what did you do about it? How did you respond to it? So this was a choice that I had to make, whether to go to Joe and tell him like, hey, it's inappropriate to ask him that question, I took a different route. I took the route of empathy. I gave him the space to, maybe nobody told Joe that it's not okay to ask that question, right? You're human, end of the day. He didn't mean to hurt me. But then I took a few days, we got to know each other, took him out for lunch, we had coffee, got to really know each other. We had a really great working relationship. So I really liked Joe and I wanted to continue to build this relationship. So one day, just talking through some ideas, I said, Joe, remember the first time we met? He's like, wow, it was like almost a year ago. Like, what made you think of that? I said, you made this comment. And I'm sorry I'm taking this long to tell you this, but I think I should tell you about it. And I did address it. And just like, oh my God, Monica, why didn't you say something? I said, because Joe, as women, we tend to disqualify ourselves for many things in our head, right? We question, we self-doubt, we think about, am I dressing differently? Do I have to wear certain type of clothes to look older? I'm a person of color, so I even go deeper, darker really fast, So I had to reel back real fast and say, you know what? Society is like that. The system is designed in a way that we question ourselves before we question everything else, right? So that needed to change. But Joe, as a wonderful human being he is, he acknowledged, he empathized, he apologized and said, Monica, thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying something because I did not know that. And I think this is the part that sometimes we all forget and we are very quick to judge. There's so much evil, and especially, resonating with some of the comments this morning, it's really uncertain times. But you know what? There's so much bad out there. There's so many bad comments. But there's some really good leaders. There's some really good people that are going to stand for the right thing and say the right thing. So leading with compassion and empathy is just the foundation for it. So I think those barriers, I just dealt with them differently, but just having an open mind and compassion for others.
Got it. Thank you.
I have some. I promise I'll be short.
No,
But
absolutely.
I am so proud of when I see young women trying to grow their careers, and if I have any influence on any person, that just fills my cup with joy. There was a woman. There you are. And I said to her today, she said, I think I'm starting a business. And what did I say? Do it. Just do it. But my two pieces of advice I wish someone would have told me this. I love what you said, Sarah, about put your hand up, volunteer, insert yourself. Like, it is important. No one's going to come in and save you. No one's going to come give you the options. I hope they do, but that's not how the real world works. So two things. I don't know how many young folks are in here. Hopefully you're watching. But I definitely think lean into your strengths as a young person. There's so many unique perspectives that I don't have as a woman in my 40s. I've lost perspective in some areas. I work in tech. Having youthful people around me is very beneficial. So lean into that. Don't be shy. You're going to have perspectives that us older folks may not. And I think two huge tactical thing. I wish someone would have told me about networking. I wish I would have started networking when I was in my 20s. It's a great place to practice your communications. It's a great place to model and look and see how other people communicate and build relationships. So if you've got young folks, or if you're a young person, start networking. Come to Invest Ottawa. Not a plug, but it's a good place. Definitely start networking very early.
Holly.
I think for me, it's I'm really kind of jealous of the young people today. The opportunities are so great. But be your own CEO, right? Like, nobody is going to take that path with you. know what you want and take up space. But I will kind of add, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of things that you kind of need to sort of grow through. So my experience was I have had many different job titles. I started at a startup, which was wonderful. I could try many hats, right? Many opportunities. But like I said earlier, I started as a programmer, went into product management. I was in HR at one point. Like, how did that happen? I went over to marketing, back to strategy, back to marketing. Try new things. The more you can learn about how a business operates, the broader your expertise are. I love me some generalists. Like, everybody's so specialized. Generalists are fabulous because they just know a little bit about everything and can bring people together and have those conversations. And absolutely your network. Find people who are your champions, who will give you those opportunities, who will speak for you when you're not there. But really speak up, own the space, be your CEO. Nobody is going to know where you want to go like you do. So be vocal about it and share that with people.
Wow, those are great pieces of advice. I love them. I love it. Lean in. I really, really like the networking part because that's critical. And I know that's something that needs to continue through your entire career. And you can keep up those relationships with people that you probably started work with, right? And you never know where you're going to see people again. Love it. I'm moving on to the next question. So McKinsey, I'm going to quote from McKinsey again. This report, by the way, the Women in the Workforce report is in its 10th year of publication. McKinsey found that though managers play a central role in women's career advancement and daily work experiences, less than half of women reported getting help advancing or navigating work challenges from their manager. What do you recommend that women can do to gain that support? Holly, can we start with you?
Oh man, I've had some great managers. It's interesting how, there's some managers who are there for you 100% and will push you and support you to move forward. And then there's the ones that kind of like they're playing football and they're holding you back a little bit. They're not the only people that can support you in your career, right? And when I think of the managers I've had in the past that may not have supported my growth, I just kept working, right? I just kept pushing forward and trying my best. And you get recognized outside of your circles for someone who can do that, for someone that can collaborate and coordinate and bring people together and inspire them. And suddenly that manager is not the one you need to move you forward. There's somebody else in a different part of the business that may sort of pluck you away and help drive it. So if you're not getting what you need from your manager, first, have those conversations, talk about your aspirations and goals, but you can't, what is it, flog a dead horse or something? Just find someone outside of your organization that recognizes your brilliance and it's there and have those opportunities. And again, networking, like we talk about, I'm not sure I've applied for a job in most of my career because it's the people I know that say, hey, there's an opportunity here and there's an opportunity there. So when you're kind of growing up, especially in the small city of Ottawa, keep those connections and keep them close because if your manager's not doing it for you, somebody else will.
Thank you. Kelly, do you want to answer that one?
I'm gonna throw out my first F word. So the F word that I'm gonna choose is feedback. Feedback is really important. So if you're not getting support from your manager, I would just say, I also started in HR, a little theme here. It may not be your manager's fault, and I'm not defending bad managers out there. Not everybody grows an employee the same way, right? So some people like to be groomed, some people like to have conversations, some people like to grow through challenges. So I wouldn't say put all the onus on your manager. Ask for feedback. You ask for feedback. Don't wait for your performance review. Don't wait for your manager to come to you and say to you, you did a great job. I think it's perfectly important for people to ask for feedback. How did I do? How did I do on the panel? You always need to get feedback. It's really, really important. I don't think waiting for your manager or your management team. I like what you said about it's not always your direct manager. Your teammates can give you great feedback. Perspective is really important. So I think feedback is a really good tactical way for you to make sure that you're growing. You're growing your own career in the way that you want. Get the feedback, apply it, don't wait, and be really proactive.
Who wants to take the next answer? Monica?
Happy to answer. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll share from my own experience because I think I'm learning every day still, how to manage things and manage people and also manage relationship with your manager because we all know things are tied to positive outcomes when you have a great relationship with your manager. But you know what? Over the course of last 10 years, I worked with many different managers, some good, some great, some were okay. And you know what? Out of no fault of their own, because nobody else maybe managing them told them that they had to pivot, they had to adjust, right? So I have a great compassion for organizations that are investing in learning and growth and leadership program that allow that to happen. But I'm also a big believer that I'm not going to put all my efforts into this one individual that can make it or break it for me, right? And this goes to not just like myself, but everybody, like in whatever walk of life you're in, you can go out there and find resources. You can go out there and make connections. And mentorship is something that I truly value a lot. I serve as a mentor, I am a mentee. And I think over these relationships, building these connections and genuinely knowing and learning from individual, and most importantly, be vulnerable with them. Stay open, be honest and radically candid. I'm a big fan of Kim Scott. Back to Kelly, art of giving and receiving feedback. That's where when you care deeply and you challenge directly. And I think I encourage everybody to invest your relationship with your mentors, with your support group, with the people that are can help you, brainstorm with you, or even just be a sounding board. Can allow you to see the strength or see the opportunities. I've done that so many times. When I didn't feel my manager quite understood what I wanted to achieve in life or what my career goals were, I went to my mentor and I called her and I said, hey, you know what? I feel like not so great right now. Can we please hop on a call? Remember, it's a two-way street. You have to invest effort. You have to show you're genuinely interested, but you also have to receive it. Meaning, when they do give you feedback, do some soul searching, sit with it, reflect on it, and really brainstorm with each other. And I think doing those things have allowed me to get to a point where I didn't necessarily needed my manager to do it all. And reflecting on what Holly said, like look outside that circle, find sponsors, allies, support system. There's so much out there than just the manager. Yeah,
Agreed.
that's where I just a little experience that I wanted to share.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, I guess I would start by saying my poor managers over the years, I pushed them. They often responded, but I'd always be like, okay, I'm doing this part of my job, but I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this. I want to grow here. But I've also been a manager for many, many years. I've had teams of 300 people. My advice really is, I always said to employees, you tell me what you want your career to be. What are the challenges that you want to experience? I'll help you get there. And I learned that from great managers of mine. There was one, I guess he was probably a VP or senior VP at Cognos. People thought he was pretty abrasive, so people didn't love him as a manager. And I ended up reporting to him. And I said to him, I want you to teach me business. He was amazing at business. And he took me under his wing and he taught me everything he knew about business. And that's how I learned. I have an English literature degree. I started as an instructional designer. But today, a lot of my business skills I learned from him. And so anyone in their career now, I would say, ask for advice, surround yourself, have your manager help you achieve those goals, but you need to come up with those goals. Your manager's not going to come up with that for you. And that's at every single level. And it's the same for me today with investors. So I do see some people thinking, well, I have investors. They should help me figure this out and they should connect me with the right people. And that's not how it works. You need to leverage your investors. Go ask them for help. Ask what you need and have them help you navigate that. And I was successful at doing that. But sometimes I look back and think, oh, my poor managers. They're like, here comes Sarah again with her next request.
Oh, no. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to mix it up a little bit and talk about current events. So there's a lot of uncertainty, as we talked about early on, a lot of uncertainty going on in the world right now. And we have a lot of challenges happening, especially with the rhetoric going on in the United States around DEI programs being rolled back and tariffs just about to impact a significant number of Canadian companies. How do you think we can remain focused on supporting women and inclusivity overall in the workplace while maneuvering through some of the recent challenges? And I'm going to open this up. Who would like to take a crack at answering that?
I can go.
Yeah, sure.
I have lived with the motto of hire the best talent for the role. Be open-minded, of course, not closed. You have to realize that it's biological. There is bias in our brain. We look for commonalities, but hire the right talent for the role. I've always done that and ended up with a diverse team. And a diverse team, I've seen proof that a diverse team, they are high performing. They can do all sorts of things. They think from different perspectives. In terms of what's going on in the world, I don't know. I typically don't get too worked up about something until it's happening. Of course, I'm always a strategic thinker, so I'm thinking of plan A, plan B, plan C to, I don't know, F, the F word. Maybe I've said the F word the last few, no. But I don't get too distracted until it's happening. And I have some strategies in mind in how to deal with certain things if they come to play. It will be an interesting time. I'm on the board of a company. They're quite nervous, and I do see how that's impacting and distracting. And so I would just encourage anyone who's in a business or running a business. And I know the founder of Sheertex is here. I mean, amazing what she did. She reached out on LinkedIn to Canada and said, help me. Like, this is amazing. I just think it's phenomenal. So hire for the best talent, for the best role. Will bring DEI. And then don't get too distracted by what's going on that we can't control.
Thank you. That's great. Who would like to jump in there?
I think in a previous company, I actually ran the diversity and inclusion efforts. One thing I think that we're all sick of is the performative stuff, right? Like, oh, we're going to put this on our LinkedIn profile because we're going to say that we support that. It doesn't work anyway, right? So to your point, hire the right people for the right job, support people in the workplace to be their true selves, have those open conversations, stop with the flags and the crests and all of those things that are just showing that your company social media person is sort of aware of what's going on and truly live it day to day. The world is the news on the weekend blew my mind. Like, it is a crazy place right now, and we can get all worked up with it if we allow ourselves to. But we have a lot of great things going on here in Canada, in Ottawa, and I think that we just sort of need to settle our minds and continue to do what we do and not get over distracted by it. It is a scary place out there, and I'm not saying be like, stop watching the news and just forget it's all happening, but just keep remembering why you wake up every day and why you do what you do. I am so naive and happy to be naive in this world. I always think it's going to work out for the best. And so far that has worked for me. So if we just keep positive, keep focusing on what we're doing, things are going to work out one way or another. And I think that'll sort of be okay, but just continue supporting each other and continue to be your true self. And I think that's all we can do right now as we watch and see what happens out there.
All right, Monica.
Yeah, happy to chime in. Hope is so beautiful. Hope, people would tell me I'm ridiculously optimistic sometimes, most times, all the time. I agree with my panelists here. I think we shouldn't let the noise distract us from doing the good work. right? There are many small ways of doing great things. And I think big things happen with small stuff. It's like setting a big goal. You set smaller goals to achieve a bigger goal. So in terms of DEI, whatever is happening in the world, it upsets me, it pisses me off. And in the end, going back to what my mom asked me, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to do good. I'm going to continue to do good. I'm going to continue to encourage all the leaders to continue to invest in mentorship programs. Think about what is important to your people. One of the things, so I recently worked at this company called Multiview. Loved my last 5 years there. Right now, just doing the mom thing, looking for a new work. But in the last 5 years, we have done many different things to embrace DEI. Didn't spend a lot of money doing it. It really is starting those conversations, regular checking in on one another. One of the things I would say when it comes to just looking at leadership and how leaders can contribute to creating that psychologically safe space for everybody, not just women, by looking at the policies, programs. So, for example, people take medical care, right? People take medical leave, caregiving leave, parental leave, mama leave, dad leave, whatever leaves there are. When people step away from work for a good period of time and they come back, they are not the same people, right? So the expectation needs to adjust a little bit. So when these individuals come back, they look for support. They have been out. And I'll speak from my own experience. The person I was before I became a mom is not who I am. I read something somewhere and it'll blow your mind. But apparently, postpartum, to recover from that, women, it takes 3 years. Mat leave is only a year. What do you do with the rest of the 2, right? So interesting facts. So what you can do as a leader is really look upon the programs, transition plans, and cater to the individual, cater to that person, cater to their needs. Because I think it goes without saying, everybody wants to do great work. We all want to come to work excited, want to do good work and change lives, ourselves, our lives, other lives, clients' lives. We're in the business of making lives better. So why not just look internally and look at individuals who are part of that change? The reason why we are what we are is because the people that we employ, people we hire. And to Sarah's point, really look for talent, hire for talent, but retain that talent by creating very genuine care of people approach with them, because it goes a long way and words do matter a lot. When somebody is in a vulnerable position or coming back or going through transition, change is beautiful, right? But it can be very devastating too. But if we don't, what if we don't choose the words right? The way we say things to individuals, again, human resources. I'm super passionate about human behavior, Brene Brown, everything for me. So really, one message I would say is really look at programs, policies, things, and most importantly, watch your words, how we say to each other, how we encourage each other, and also be kind to yourself and just give yourself some grace.
Got it. Thank you. We're coming up very close to time, so I'm just going to ask you to weigh in do you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, so we're at our last question. Remembering that the themes of this event are fierce, focused, and fearless, what message or takeaway would you like to leave with our audience today? Sarah, I'm going to start with you.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. What would I leave us with? I like the word hope. I like the words, purposefully changing. Like, look at this room. Look at all the facts Sonya put up. I mean, when I was in Ignition, I think we were the 3rd cohort. Even in that cohort, there were women founders. Like, I was like, hey, this is amazing. I see change happening. It may feel like we don't see change, or there's a lot of rhetoric right now coming from places south of us that is against DEI, but change is happening and it's slow, but we are making it happen. And so I think, Leah is always the one, believe, Sarah, believe. Every day I get up and I say, believe. And I believe that equality will happen, that we will make that change. And I'm glad with what's happening because it's woken up Canada. And we are going to support each other and we're going to drive that change.
Yeah, true. Kelly.
Trying to find a fun F word to end with. Maybe fun. Yeah, I think some good advice. Have some fun. Being a leader, being in a startup community, living in this world can be crazy. Try to have fun. But my real tactical advice is we didn't really have a chance to talk about authenticity, and I think it's so important. I love, and I think She Boot has a beautiful expression that they've added onto. So it's like, see her, be her. I think this year it's see her, hear her, be her, which I love. And I'm gonna suggest something. I think be you is very important. Having incredible people around you of influence is important. Influence is important, but do not imitate. Be yourself. We do not want to be carbon copies of each other. I have been influenced and supported by a lot of women in this room here today, but I don't want to be them. I want to be myself, and I want to be unique. And I think being authentic to who you are is something memorable, and that's the most power that you're ever going to have is when you are completely yourself.
I started with my 2 teenagers who ignore me every day. I also have the opportunity every semester to speak to a class at Penn State that are graduating and going out in the world. And the one thing that blows my mind about this next generation coming is they're not putting up with shit. And I made it this far without the real F word, so I'm going to just give myself that word. And I think that is fabulous. And you can put as many F's in front of that fabulous as you want. I sort of challenge all of us to not put up with it and to just go out, be you, push hard, and get what you want, and then just be fabulous while you do it. That's my F word.
Love it. Love it.
Love that. Be fabulous. For me, I would leave you with be bold. Be bold, be fierce, and like don't be afraid to self-advocate. People who want you, they will truly believe in you, they will care for you, they will go bat for you. People who don't do that, they're not your people. So just find your people, find your support group, find mentors. But yeah, thank you so much for having us here. It's so heartwarming, so powerful. And yeah, just be badass, I guess.
Love it. Thank you very much. Now we're going to open up questions to the audience. So if you do have a question, please feel free to go to the microphone, which is right in the center. We're going to kind of put you on center stage if you don't mind.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for this presentation. You guys are amazing. Ladies are amazing. And you have answered a lot of the questions that I had in my mind. One of them was, just be truthful to who you are. And I love the last statement from Monica, be bold, just go for it. One of the things that I work and love, I'm passionate about, is inclusion for accessibility of information, product, and services. So I work in inclusion for reviewing website and things of that nature, just to make sure that no one is left behind. With that being said, I love and embrace boldness, but I've noticed that helping some organizations, I have to find a way to create balance. And that's the question I have for the panelists. How do you create balance when you are bold and fierce? I've wondered and I help organizations. And sometimes when I'm too bold, the team is like, oh no, you make us look so bad. You're too quick, you do this, you do that. And gosh, I've heard it so many times. And I'm like, oh, do I have to put myself in a small box to fit in so that people don't feel uncomfortable around me. So again, being bold is something that I embrace, but sometimes it looks like in, working within organization or working with clients, there is that culture of, no, you're supposed to blend in. I don't love it, but I wonder, how can I create balance without really stepping on people's toes, but knowing my truth and being just authentic?
Thank you.
Can I jump in that one?
Absolutely.
Like, don't change. I mean, I've gotten in a lot of trouble. Like I've been called to the HR office for I'm bold. Like, and I say what's on my mind, and I don't. But people now just expect that of me. And if you can't be your true self, it's not your space, right? That is not a jam that I can play. I swear, I'm so proud of myself for only saying one bad word. I say what I feel. I tell people what I think. I'm open to hearing it as well, but please don't be your true self. Don't let somebody shrink you down. And that's who you are, and that's how you're going to make your space in this world. I know. Listen, I've gotten in trouble. I've coached people in similar things, and they've gotten a lot of trouble. But they're always move forward and do better. Don't change who you are. Please don't change who you are.
I love that. I was called on the side, and then it was quite interesting because that doesn't usually happen often for me. I'm a very inclusive person, and I was called on the side, and someone reported me as not a team player, and that was because I was just too bold. And I was like, what?
I'll leave you with something to help maybe, because in our situation, HR, we deal with a lot of different situations where you have to balance that, being bold, being right. I would drive with values, when you cater your message. I'm a big fan of structures when speaking. I learned this from this professor at Stanford, Matt Abraham, a structure called What's So What Now What. So what you're doing is you're presenting the value, you're talking about what is it that is important, right? Why should they care? So you explain to them, so what? And now what is what do you really want them to do? So if you want something tactical, be bold. Absolutely do not change, because maybe those are not the clients that's going to take you further and align with your business and your values, right? So personal values are so important. So maybe do that. Use a structure to tackle those difficult conversations. And in the end, remember, keep it human, kind, right? Yeah.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
I have
Thanks.
a second question. Can I just ask that quickly? And I apologize. I'm a person who loves asking questions. I know. Is that okay? Second question?
Sure, we do have somebody behind you, though.
Oh, okay. I apologize very quickly. So usually I come also and provide bold ideas that are out of the box, not something crazy like going on Mars or I don't know, Jupiter, but something that is still manageable. So for example, just to give you an illustration, let's say the company is advocating for accessibility, the one specialist, but I'm like, bring people with disability so that you can really see the lived experience and the barriers. And they're like, oh, we don't know. And so ideas like that usually are out of the box and sometimes not something that the organization has done before. How do you approach that? As you guys have been, pioneering the fact that you need to be bold, you need to express, you need to bring ideas that can create, innovation. How do you deal with bringing new ideas that are out of the box and people don't know if they want to take it or not?
Do you want to take that one, Sarah?
Yeah, I would say people are looking for a leader always, and often bold people who have ideas become the leader. Get them to tell you the ideas instead of you telling. So you might have all the ideas. I always had lots of ideas. But do a brainstorm and ask them questions and get them to come up with the ideas. And in doing that, you can insert some of yours. Like, what about this? I don't know. I thought about this on the weekend. What do you think? And it's including them. Like, I was bold. I did a lot of things in my career. I did not ever do it alone. I did it with a group of people who were high performers. I always picked the top performers to surround myself, and together we were successful. And there's an art to getting them to bring the ideas. And when they do, they're going to go drive it forward.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll try to be quick here. Colleen O'Connell Campbell, thank you for being here. And my question is actually inspired by my friend here, Helen, who has a group called 60 Over 60. And I know we asked the question about nurturing the youth and the younger professionals or younger entrepreneurs, but I'm kind of towards the end of my career, not the end, like there's a good 15, 20 or 25 years left, but that's kind of my point. We share a lot of advice for those who are in the beginning of their career, but there's also a lot of bias that we can have. And I've been there at the beginning of my career as a young woman with children in a profession that's very male dominated, and I'm in wealth management. And here, you know, we still get sort of the ageism from the far end of things. And I'm just curious about what advice you might have to the crowd. It's a pretty broad question, but I just think we need to look at all sides of the picture. So thank you for the inspiration, Helen.
Just quickly, I'll say, I feel like that when I present to investors sometimes. I'm like, are they looking at me like, whoa, she's at the end of her career. How's she going to drive this whole company forward and become venture backed? But I just talk to all the things I know. So like my advantage is I have a whole shit ton of experience. And so I can talk to that and use that to my advantage. And just one quick thing that I think is, as we're talking about bias, that I think it's funny. Like we go through a whole IT security procurement process. There's always a question on the IT security because we have AI. How do you prevent the AI from inputting bias? Like how is it taking care of bias? And I get that question and I'm like, why are we asking this all the time about a system but not human beings in the work world? I just think it's so funny. So I don't know how we can flip that question. But I would just say, you know, like for young people, it's about proving, I think, that I can do it and having the confidence. And then for us who are older, it's about showing all of the experience and value that we can bring. But it doesn't matter what age you are.
I just have one comment. I think being a learner at all stages of your life is important, and just leaning into, like you do at the beginning and the end sounds bad, near the later stages of life. I think continuous learning is really important, and I think no matter where you are in your age, whatever decade you're in, relevance to being connected to learning is really important. So maybe investing a little bit in learning and sort of staying relevant in areas. But I would completely echo what Sarah says. You have to lean into your assets. You're not a liability. No one's a liability unless you sort of let those biases influence you. So treat your experience, lack of experience, your age, your lack of age, all of that as an asset, and just prepare and like, sorry, there you are. Behind the pole. But just lean into where you are an asset. And I have a PhD in Google. I always celebrate that. I do. I have 2 masters, a PhD. I learn by living, and I learn by doing. So that's a huge asset.
I think when I realized that I was in the oldest top 3% at a fairly large company once, it hurt my heart a little bit. But I think staying young at heart, asking a lot of questions. It's almost like that reverse mentorship thing, right? What can I learn from the younger people, and then what can I go home and complain about? God, these young people. But it really is about just learning and keeping that top of mind, and never think you're too old to learn, because God, I learn every day, and I love the Google and the Chat GPT.
Okay, we are done. I will say we're going to bring Lindsay back up on stage. I think she's going to tell us what our next steps are. I wanted to thank Sarah, Kelly, Holly and Monica for being here and being really open and honest about the questions and what their experiences have been. They will be around for the rest of the event, so feel free to, hopefully you're okay with it, chat with them and ask any questions that you might have. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks everybody.
All right. As everyone files off here, what an incredible panel discussion. So many different F words named and one in particular avoided, which is great because we don't have a delay on the live stream online. So it's just full on. We're at the point where we're going to take a break, but I wanted to, I really like the point of networking that we talked about in that panel discussion. And if you're looking for a networking hack, I would recommend emceeing an event. I already have like 5 LinkedIn requests. It's going really well. I haven't talked to anyone. It's been great. And then when Sarah talked about acting big, I was like, oh yeah, I got that unlocked too. So I'm feeling quite empowered after that discussion. So we're going to take about a 15-minute networking break. There's a lot of food over here. There's actually going to be lunch after. So if we can, it's courageous work, but we can clear this out, I think. If we all put our mind to it. And then there's coffee, tea, decaf over here as well. But we'll come back in about 15 minutes or so. All right, not to break up a discussion, but to break up a discussion. Gonna welcome everyone back. Hey. Some good news for folks that were looking for coffee. We've got coffee coming. So we're going to start off with our fireside chat for the last portion of today. You want to do like hands on top? Well, they're in line for food, so that's kind of the thing, you know?
All right, everyone. We are going to keep this important event on time. We know there are many folks still in line for the amazing snacks. I see so many amazing people I love and admire here. This is amazing. Please take your seats. We have an incredible fireside keynote. Lindsay and I are tag teaming. There we go. Marvelous. I'm going to hand the microphone back to Linz.
Thank you, Sonya. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you were able to network on the break. If you are still having a discussion, we'll have networking time built in after our fireside chat as well. So we certainly don't want to cut those conversations short. We'll have time built in after, and we actually have lunch coming in after as well. So if you didn't get a full plate full now, there'll be some later, and then there'll be more coffee coming as well. But excited to be back. In terms of what's next, I think it's one of our big draws for today is this upcoming fireside chat. So I'm going to welcome our two speakers up on stage. So we've got Katherine from Sheertex here, and then Stephanie from MyCo Future. So please give them a warm welcome onto the stage.
Hello, everyone. Happy International Women's Month, which for us is all year because we're always advocating. So it's such a pleasure to be here, especially with Katherine. I think everyone in this room is a fangirl, I think we can all say. But for those of you in the audience who might not know, who might not spend all their days on LinkedIn like I do, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how Katherine and I met. And it seems like a lifetime has passed, but last November, Katherine was on another keynote panel at U of T, and I was part of a small makers market. It was about building physical products, and I asked my, I guess, accelerator mom at Mars if I could get an introduction because I really wanted to talk to Kat, as everyone does. So I put it out there. I know she's a very, very busy person, and she said yes. So I got to meet Katherine for a coffee, and I thought that I would get to meet a legend, ask some questions about, my big question was like fundraising as a materials innovation startup really early on when there's so much to prove, and I thought who better to maybe give me some answers. But by the end of that meeting, something truly magical happened. We explained the situation, and Katherine offered us a $100,000 purchase order of our material so that we could also launch a product, sell to the public, and gain traction, which is one of the hardest things to do at the early stage. And so as I was lifting my jaw off the floor, Katherine was like, when can you come to Montreal? I'm like, tomorrow. And and we're like, okay. So my co-founder Leo and I flew out to Montreal the very next day, and what I will always remember as equal parts Willy Wonka to a little bit of Pretty Woman, it was like walking through the looking glass into just an incredible experience for the week where we did a rebrand, we designed a prototype, and I got to see, what the future of innovation in materials was. So it is a privilege to be here with you today after all that's
Excited to be here.
I should add, working at Katherine speed, which if there's any PhDs in physics, I'd like to discuss this. It's faster than any other unit of measurement, including light speed. So in about 2 weeks from now, we will be harvesting and delivering to SRTX our very first sheets of material.
Woo!
Yeah. So to start off, I think I'd like to talk about going back to the panel, talking about authenticity, transparency, and really finding a voice. So you've been really active on LinkedIn and on your Substack the last few months. And on a recent Beta Kit podcast, you talked about having to relearn that after you found the internet to be really mean, which I think we can all agree is a scary place. So what prompted you to put yourself out there again?
Yeah, I think that what initially sparked it was it felt like because I'd been quiet for so long, our story and our product was not really being told by us anymore. It felt like other people owned the narrative. And I just wanted to set the record straight. I wanted to talk about our innovation. I wanted to talk about why we were different, why we were doing the things that we were doing. And quite frankly, first of all, just to see if anyone cared, because it seemed like the way that our product and how we're being talked about in the market was not accurate to me. But I was okay, well, maybe this is just what people think and they don't actually care about the other parts that I care about. So it started by just wanting to set the record straight. And then from there, I think it came from a renewed confidence in what we had built. I think in the early days of at least my startup journey, it felt like there were so many different flaws with the business and the plan and so many things not yet achieved that if I put myself out there, it felt like it was so easy for someone to just come in and poke a million different holes. And I had seen a lot of CEOs, a lot of startup founders have people come and poke out all of those different holes in their business, in them as people, in their management, all of these different things. Whereas I was finally feeling at the point in the business where obviously we're very far from perfect, but I felt a lot more confident in what we had built. And even if you could point out a million different flaws, there was still inherent value in what we had done in the business that I could be proud of. And I didn't feel that at earlier points in the business. So those were the things that I think first gave me my voice. But I'm sure we'll talk about it. Having a voice has not been as easy as probably like a magical fairy tale I would have liked it to be, where I could start speaking out and find my people and, be able to start telling this story. I'd say that on a whole, I found that, the vast majority of the population that reads what I write is very supportive, is very kind, is really rallying along. Whereas those people that have decision-making power around me, my company, but I would say just more broadly decision-making power at all, have had a very negative view of the things that I have written. And those views only come out when pulled in certain directions. And I think that has been really fascinating to see because there has been no malintent in anything that I've written. It's really been, I'm trying to do this really hard thing. I'd love to have some help. Here's the story. And it is mostly seen as weakness and mostly seen as failure by anyone of decision-making power, which for me, I guess I knew obviously because I've fundraised a lot and I know how much the narrative matters, but I felt that we had built something that deserved respect, that maybe I could finally be vulnerable and still be respected. And that was very much not the case. And I found that to be this very interesting whirlwind to put myself through over the course of the last few months. And I quite frankly don't know exactly where I stand now on the other side of it.
Do you regret it in a way, or are you still trying to figure that out?
I don't regret it because I feel like I claimed the rest of my life, if that makes sense. I think that there's certainly a version of me that could have remained how I was 6 months ago. And I was very alone, and I was very anxious, but in like a very bottled up kind of way where it was all on me. And I feel now that my ability to own my own narrative and my own story is a lot more possible. And I know my life is long, my business career is long, and I think this is a much, much better way to live my life. That said, I also think that I learned so much from every single part of this journey. And I think I needed this shake to be like, it's not easier now. Like, here you go. Like, no one's coming to save you. Like, there's something about no one's coming to save you that I think is like, okay, I got to stand on my own two legs. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't regret it. But it's been a learning experience.
And I think it's a really important one to share from someone in your position, because pretty much everyone in this room knows the statistics about fundraising and even women-led companies that reach this stage of your company, and especially keep the women leaders. So I think it is important to show that it is a really long road. I'm at the very beginning of that, and raising is always this big goalpost, but there's just so many. And I've described it that once we close our round, it's really just getting to the start of the marathon. Like, there's all this pre-work we're doing, and I think it's a good reminder that don't ever feel that the sprint is over. I mean, it changes, and there's like rewards and wins along the way, but I think it's great that you're kind of lifting the curtain to the next stages that we all have to look forward to as we grow our big businesses.
To look forward to, yes.
Yeah. And a little bit more on transparency. Thinking back a whole year ago, I got to see Sam, SRTX Chief of Staff at CX, talking about supply chain and just the company in general. And so I asked a question from the audience. I don't know if she would remember that I did that, but I was really inspired by the previous year you sharing your actual Shopify dashboard for Black Friday. I thought that was so cool to see the inner workings of
e-commerce. Anyone actually looked at that. Oh.
I did. And I was like, whoa.
There was someone on the other side.
Yeah, that was me. And actually just this past November, it was the week of Black Friday, and got to see it from inside SRTX. Yeah. So yeah, for me, that was very rewarding. So I asked her, what it's done for transparency. Do you think, just, talking about how you've been sharing, are there parts of transparency that are still very important, especially when it comes to building metrics and the actual running of the company, that has really helped you?
Yeah, there was a company that I became familiar with. It had to have been over a decade ago now, called BufferBox. Some of you guys might remember it. It was a software app that had gone through Y Combinator, and they took a pretty radical approach, certainly radical at the time, approach to transparency. They made everyone's salary in the company completely public to the rest of the company. I think it was actually public outside of the company as well. I think you could see the whole spreadsheet. And then they also did a lot of hyper transparent posts about the internal workings of the company. And then around the same time, Stripe, which we all know now, the payments company, they came out with basically saying that their internal email policy was that all emails were public, which basically meant that you could actually search anyone else in the company's email, and that was one form of sharing information. And all of those things were very inspiring to me. I think if I were to go back and do it again, I probably would have started out more transparent from the very, very beginning, in terms of all salaries being public, equity, those kind of things, which at the beginning were not public, and it wasn't malicious. It's just you're only one person, so who are you sharing it with? And then when you add another person, there isn't a place where they get access to this information. So you look up one day and there's lots of people around, and you realize that not everyone has the same information. You also then realize, probably for the first time, oh God, did I make all these decisions fairly? Did I make all of these decisions off of the same data set? Did I make it based on that person saying this is what I want, whereas this person said, what are you going to give me? And now all of a sudden you're creating inequity in the business that you didn't even realize that you were creating. And then eventually companies get to the point where you're now using third-party data, and you're using that to do, pay analysis and fair equity comp. But at that point, you're usually so big that then to like take off the veil on all of this is actually like probably going to be destabilizing and cause chaos within the company. But had you just started from the beginning and say, we use this data set, this is how we choose compensation, it's a public data set, you can look at the public data set and everyone in the company will map to that public data set, you could be a lot more transparent from the very beginning. And I think if I were to start again, I would start that way instead. But I think it gets more and more complicated if you don't do it from the very beginning. That said, when it comes to company metrics, I'd say we are very transparent and we have been from day one. It's probably one of those things that had we not been transparent in the beginning, it would be hard to be transparent later. But because everyone's always had access to sales, always had access to profitability, always had access to cost to produce, that's very easy information for us to be very transparent about at a company. We talk about it all our weekly meetings. I can send things around and it's quite easy. So I would lean as far as you possibly can on transparency. And I would say that it's so much easier if you start that way than if you come at that later. And I would even put my own LinkedIn public communications in that same bucket. It probably would have been easier had I started that way. That said, I'm not entirely sure I would have been able to control the narrative at a very early stage when a business is very chaotic. So, there are trade-offs at every part.
Sometimes you don't want to share how the sausage is made just at, moment. You have to kind of control that narrative.
Well, and I think we were also very worried about competitors because there was a lot of IP, there was a lot of money, and we didn't want everything about how we were doing things to be very public. Now, many years in, many dollars into infrastructure, we're so much more confident in our IP, in our patent protection, in the infrastructure that we've built, that we're not as afraid of being very transparent because we know how hard it is to copy us. But in the early days, you're not so sure. And, probably no one would have copied us anyway. But, you have that worry, and it also, your investors have that worry, and you're trying to be kind of protective of it all.
Yeah, and I think in general, building a transparent company really directly supports a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive company as well. When you're really doing that based on data, and you can look back and not question things as much when there's transparency there. So I think that's great. And I think you have a pretty diverse company from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that has made the company more diverse is just how vertically integrated we are. So we have a very wide variety of types of jobs that people do within the company. I sometimes say we have, 6 companies within the company. You have the raw material production, which is more like a petrochemicals company. Then you have knitting, and then you have assembly, which is more like a sewing floor. Then we have basically a branding and marketing agency. Then we have a PhD material science section. Then you have like finance and HR. And I will say that there are certain demographics that do go towards different parts of our company. You can see that in terms of the applications that we get to all the different jobs. But because it is so full spectrum, we end up pulling together a pretty diverse group of people at the end of the day.
Awesome. And so, moving into a little bit more on diversity, and I definitely want to preface this question with a memory that stuck with me for many, many years. Back in the days of Much Music, there was an interview with the Canadian band Metric, who had a lead singer, Emily Haynes, and she was asked, what's the hardest part about being the only girl in a band? And her answer was, the only thing harder than being the only girl in a band is being asked about how hard it is being the only girl in a band. And I didn't take it the same way back then. I was like, oh, well, you're just so lucky you're a rock star. But now I acutely understand this question. So prefacing this, but it is International Women's Month. And I hope that people out there watching, really understand, what we're advocating for. So you're in a lot of rooms, you get asked to speak, you have so much to offer. Can you give us an idea of how often you're the only woman in a room? I mean, barring these kinds of, but in a boardroom, an investor meeting, and in different organizations.
Yeah, so what I would say is that my general feeling on this topic has changed quite a bit over the course of my career. And what I mean by that is that if you asked me this 13, 15 years ago when I was doing my first venture-backed company, my response would have been something along the lines of, being the only woman means you have access to different sorts of opportunities, and you should be able to take what is a disadvantage and find, whether it's the funding programs that you can get access to because you're a woman, or the mentorship, or the events like this. There's dozens and dozens of different opportunities that you'll uniquely have access to because you're a woman. You'll also often be, asked to be on panels or in rooms that you might not have had access to simply because you are being brought in because you're diverse or because you're a woman, and take advantage of that. Like, don't be ashamed. Don't like sit in the corner, like go sit at the table, be part of the conversation. And, if I would ask like, how has that impacted my journey, being a woman, I would say something along the lines of, it's hard to say because being an entrepreneur is always hard. So, how much harder is it because I'm a woman? I'm not entirely sure, but, it is very, very difficult, and you just have to look for whatever. That would have been my response for a very, very long time. And I think as this company has grown, the sexism of it all has become like extremely clear and acute at like very much a glass ceiling type of level. And I would say that it would have started in the early days as being, you're the visionary behind this, and we need to find the operators that are actually going to be able to do this. It would be, being called uncollaborative. It would be being called aggressive. It would be, all of these little paper cuts that were told to me that the person on the other side was just doing good governance, or this is what they would do to, just make sure that they're properly communicating to a CEO, or this always, happens with founders, and this just has to happen over time. And this could be at a board level, but it could also be in, a new investor conversation where, it's about like, who's actually operating it, what happens at the next phase of the business. And like, it has gotten to a point, and I'm trying to be very positive. But it's like everything is gaslighting, like always. And you do start to feel actually insane. Because everyone that you talk to that's at the same stage in a business will tell you that it's also hard for them. And you're like, okay, so it's just always hard. This is just normal hard. But there's something about your experience that feels not normal hard. There's something about this that feels really off. And you can't put your finger on it, and you just start feeling more and more crazy. And then you start wondering, would it have been easier? Could it have been easier? And then you tell yourself, it doesn't matter if it could have been. I'm a woman and I can't change that. So I just have to deal with it. And you end up spiraling. And this is not whether you're the only woman in the room or not the only woman. You end up being filled with lots of rooms with lots of women and lots of men. And it's completely baked in psychologically to all of us, whether we are men or women. Like, my style of interaction is seen as uncollaborative and aggressive, as opposed to, self-assured or, confident. That's not how I'm seen, but it's probably how women or men would probably see a man in my position. And as soon as you are a CEO that's uncollaborative, my God, that is not an easy situation to be in. So all of this said, I think this is not new to me at this point in the business. This has been, 8 years of leading the business and it getting more and more and more formalized, and realizing that there is something about this that feels harder, that you can't get anyone to agree with because it's too hard to put their finger on.
Yeah, I love that.
That.
Not in a good way. I love the way you've expressed that, because yeah, I think if there's any founders here, I think we can all share this sensation of course it's hard. We're in this to be hard, but I think, yeah, you said, I don't love that it exists, but that now we can kind of share that experience with words of like, what more can I do? Like, what more can I prove? How much more, collaborative, taking feedback can I be to show that we're, worthy of the next step? So,
But the second that you're more collaborative or you do all of those other things, then you're also not a strong leader.
Yeah,
And
you're a
you're also
pushover.
not all of these other things. So it's just, you can't win.
It's a drawer full of double-edged swords.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
But of course, you being you and women being women, you've adapted. Has there been an aha moment where you're like, okay, this is how I crack, this is how I'm gonna kind of push through it, or is it always gonna be a push and pull?
So I would say number one is your team, let's call it your executive or your leadership team, male or female, has to agree with the way that you see the world. And what I mean is, if it is men, they need to be the best freaking advocates that you've ever seen in your life, that will see the same thing that you see. And you'll be like, did you see what I saw? And they're not going to make you feel crazy. Like, those people become so freaking valuable, because as much as it's okay to fight the fight every single day with every single part of the world, you can't also fight it in your company. So I'd say, like, the main thing is your company has to be your safe place. Your company, your executive team, your leadership team needs to be the people that see things. And I'm not trying to say like it has to be like groupthink, but like emotionally supportive of you as a human is important on your team. And then I think beyond that, there is a limit to how much people that are outside your company can understand and can help. But I think having other friends that are founders and go through hard times and will give you the full unvarnished version of what's happening is incredibly important for sanity. To know that you're not alone at any given time, and to have people that have dealt with complex situations before. So making sure that you have that really close group of other founders is also really important. And then, I mean, something that a lot of people say is, you know, pick your partners in terms of investors, you know, very, very carefully. I think that comes from, I'm going to say the word that often I cringe at, but like a place of extreme privilege. Like the idea that you can optimize for terms and the future of your company while having this selection of people that want to fund your company is, I don't know, well, I know exactly who has those options, but it's not me. And I think you're, as a founder, often left with like just doing the best with the cards you have and playing the absolute best possible game. And when I talk about like the emotional journey of all of this, I think just being able to like look at parts of the game, be like, this is unfair, but it is unfair and I'm going to move forward, rather than thinking like, am I crazy here? Like, what's going on? Like feeling like you're crazy just like is a really, really bad spiral. It's way better in my experience, just be like, this is freaking hard, this is unfair, and I'm going to keep going because I can do this. And then it's a freaking long journey. Like, I used to know that it took about a decade to build a company, but now I know it takes like a decade to build a company. And it doesn't feel done until that. It's not like you're sitting on this and being like, it feels 80% perfect, it's going to be more perfect tomorrow. It's like, no, it feels like super incomplete still. And you don't get like the sense of it really being done until it like looks like a mature company overnight. And I have never more deeply felt that to be true.
That's intense for me, again, being at the start of the journey. I do want to go back to what you said about having female founders, and I'm still very much in like the accelerator learning part of, you know, my startup journey. And so I've had the privilege of being in really amazing programs. Sheertex just graduated from the previous cohort, Marswood and Clean Tech. Just been able to be surrounded by really inspiring women. So not so much a question, but a follow-up to be like, yeah, it's been so helpful to have people along the way, and we're all doing different things and building things, but it has, from the very start for me, which probably might have been a bit different for you, to be surrounded by just amazing women that, you know, I consider my friends and I can call. We have group chats, and so I think that would be something I definitely agree with. And so here's another thing you've done. You've been such a huge champion for me, and I really have to explain like how it took someone in Katherine's shoes, I think, to really see, where Microfutures is, and then say, okay, I'm going to help because, we've been fundraising for a long time, lots of accelerators, but to really understand the complexities of scaling up manufacturing. And so it was like really a tailor-made opportunity for us, and it's changed things for us completely. And so who has been one of the most surprising champions for you? And, and for women founders broadly, have you seen, maybe it's a person, maybe it's a group, maybe it's a school of thought?
Yeah. So what I would honestly say is that so much of this journey has been so hard fought that it's genuinely hard to look back and be like, oh, that magic thing, that was just like someone reaching out and making this a lot easier. And it's why when I was sitting across from you at that coffee shop, I was like, I need to give her the hand that like I desperately wish someone had given me, or that I desperately wish in some other context someone would give me right now. And that's where, most of the time, I'm just gonna like play out the situation a little bit. So she came in, I knew a little bit about mycelium leather because I'm in the space. I knew it was interesting. I knew a lot of people had tried and it had failed, but could see that there was a market opportunity there. My first question was basically, have you raised any money? The answer was no. It's like, okay, well, that's a pretty clean cap table, if nothing else. Like if you don't have other cash into it. So like there's something there. Do you know how much money you need? And she had a very clear answer that she needed roughly 120,000 to get the first production up and running. Knew pretty much where they were going to do it. They wanted to do it in Montreal. That's like good symbiotic with us because we're in Montreal. And then my question was like, okay, like, so what are you going to do? And it was very clear that the answer to this question could have not changed in years. I don't actually know how long that had been the answer to the question, but that she had not gotten the yeses that she needed in terms of financing, in terms of POs, in terms of anything to actually go on to the next step. And I knew that I could be the person on the other side of this that's like, okay, interesting, send me your deck. I'll send it to a couple investors, see if they're interested, send me some samples of the mycelium and I'll try to like make some things and I can give you feedback on the product. I could say, happy to have you come meet with our material scientists, happy to have you come get some support from our team. How much does it cost you to make it right now? Oh, I don't know. That's a little expensive. Usually we'd be looking at something that's this price, but, let's stay in touch and let's keep like working together. That's like 100% of the conversations I've ever had that go well. Like you also have, the 95 where they say no. But the ones that go well are that. And I, as a founder, know how time consuming, expensive, and useless that kind of support actually is on the other side. So I basically put myself in her shoes and I was like, what could I do that I have the authority to make a decision on right now that actually has a meaningful impact on her and is something that I can actually do? And I knew that I could probably sell some of this product. And I could put it on our website and get it out to our community. I don't know how long it would take to sell, but over some period of time, I'm sure I could sell it. I asked her a few questions, kind of did some rough math to figure out how much of this material we would need in a bag. Let's assume that it's, roughly 30% of the cost of the bag. We did some rough math, figured out, okay, I could sell these for like $100. Then, I'd have to sell $300,000 of these to be able to buy 100,000 from you. I'm doing like rough math on our revenue and being like, probably we could sell that much. Okay, I'll give you $100,000 pre-order PO. I'm gonna do a prepayment because me not doing a prepayment is useless to you because you can't actually make anything. So I'm gonna commit right now that it's a prepayment. And you should come to Montreal and meet with the team and we can finalize this. Oh, and I understand that like, you maybe took public transit to get here. Do you want me to book your flight to Montreal? Because I'm not exactly sure how you would get to Montreal. And like, just basically thinking from a founder's perspective of like, what would I actually need out of this meeting? And for me, it was not a selfless act. It was probably an act of therapy. Like, it's just like, how do I wish these meetings could go with people that I know have the ability to do this at different scales. Like at my stage, it's a very different level of, you know, money or benevolence that I require from someone. There's lots of people that I sit across from, you know, every day that have the ability to make a decision on a purchase order, make a decision on a trial, make a decision on an investment that put me through all of these different things that make it harder. And I believe in a world where we could just do the things in our power on the spot and not torture each other. And that's, I think, where this came from. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's, again, I can't underscore enough how life-changing it is for someone to say yes to you when, yeah, we didn't really have a lot to offer in terms of metrics and sales and things like that, but for someone to really understand what we needed and be able to give it and make a quick decision. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get over like how changing that is. And you touched on it, but is there anything else you'd want to say to other people in that position who say, well, and we're going to talk about risk in a second, but it's risky, it's expensive, it's hard. I mean, what if it fails? That's something I'm terrified about every day. But, you know, I guess we need to, like, what's your view on taking risks versus, you know, making the world that you see or you want to see?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit complicated in the sense that I usually see things in terms of like a much grander vision of what it is that I'm trying to achieve. And oftentimes when someone suggests something that they perceive as being low risk, I actually see it as incredibly high risk because it makes the bigger plan that I have almost impossible to do. Like it's making it easier in the short run, but you're actually cutting yourself off at the knees. You can't actually get to the bigger vision. So good examples of this would be, you know, don't make an investment in this line or this thing that you're going to do. Just focus on, you know, what you're doing right now and like optimize it. But you know that at the price point that you're currently doing it, the market's only this big. So if you don't make that other investment, the market can never get to the size that you want it. And then therefore the future of the company is only ever going to be a certain size. And to me, you know, what someone might see as low risk because it's just don't spend the extra money, focus on the thing you're doing right now. I'm like, well, that's actually super high risk because it means we're never going to be able to, you know, have this future potential. And I genuinely do see it as higher risk, which is why I can get into very impassioned debates with people where they think I'm being absolutely insane and risk-taking, but I think they're actually being super insane and super risky in what they're doing as well. And I think this is just like different perceptions of risk. I think probably it is that I'm willing to take higher risk for higher reward. But I actually think it's that I've seen this game play out too many times, and I can see where the small version or, you know, the thing that like just barely gets by, you know, doesn't exist in 5 years. It like ends up in some corner. It can't attract the right talent. And I want to play for the longer term, but I definitely get into a lot of impassioned debates around this. And then I'd say like in terms of risk of failure, I think there's a lot of complicated aspects to that, but at the same time, life is long, your career is long, and you should most certainly make the most of what you're doing, of the learning you're getting out of what you're doing, protect your personal interests as both an employee and a shareholder, but also protect the interests of the other people around the table because it's a small world and you're going to see a lot of the same people as you keep going. But also, you are not your company, and you might be the current vision of that company, but you are not it in the end. And you have to be able to make some rational, like cold decisions about like what is right for you as well as a human in this journey. So all of that said, I think that startups are not necessarily as risky as people say. I think there are lots of people that make their careers in startups, whether that's as founders, whether that's as executives, and they make really wonderful careers. But it's a career choice. Like, you're getting into startups not necessarily for this one business that you want to have happen. It's because you love the adrenaline of it. You love building. You know, I sold 2 businesses before this. You know, I'm absolutely loving this. I hope we can take this through IPO, but I also know that I have a life as a founder beyond this. And I have lots and lots of things that I want to do in the world. So yeah, I think my thing to you, if you're a founder, is, you know, choose being a founder, choose starting businesses, see everything as learning at different levels and different scales, and see the risk that you're taking as learning opportunities, but protect yourself like it's a career, protect yourself with pay, protect yourself with equity, protect yourself with control, and do these things as if it's a career choice.
Awesome. Do you think you've always had this risk appetite? Do you think it's an inherent trait to entrepreneurs that you kind of have to take it as far? Is it something that you slowly built on over time as you understood what was at stake to not, you know, take these big swings, and as your vision got bigger and bigger for the things you knew that you could achieve?
I mean, I always think I had ambition, but I don't think I really understood a lot of the like tenets of value creation or power dynamics or how value actually got created. I think a lot of that I learned very much kind of trial by fire. I think I always had the confidence to ask for a lot and the confidence to negotiate. But I think even that came from things that I did before startups that made me comfortable in conversation with powerful people or opinionated people. And, you know, if you went back in time, probably I was pretty horrible at it 10 years ago. And I hope 10 years from now, I look back at myself now and think that I was pretty horrible at it now too. So I think you just always got to be learning. I will say that particularly when you see a lot of startups play out, there's a lot of patterns that you can start to recognize, which I think are how I now weigh the risk reward profile of it, where like I'm optimizing for a really good, big outcome company, and I see the decisions I can make along the way that would take me on a path where that's not actually the thing that I want to build. And this is very unique to me. You need to know, like, what are you personally passionate about building? And for me, I like the huge platform industrialization play. Other people like the brand play. Other people like a SaaS annuity type of play. And it really depends on who you are and what you're optimizing for, because a different set of decisions, a different set of people around you will build a different company. But I think that I've at least become very clear on the path that excites me, and I'm staying very true to that.
Great. This might be a little bit of a spicy question, but who is not listening to you on Substack, to, you know, founders out there who should be listening when it comes to fixing inequality for women? And that's, you know, of course, including non-binary and trans folks. In VC and business, is it a government problem? Is it a, you know, old boys club of VC? Like, who would you love to be able to just like take them by the collar and shake to be like, you need to listen?
So I'm very fortunate to have access to a lot of people and a lot of organizations that I could only have dreamed to have access to years ago. So I do have the ability to shake the collars, and I have. And maybe it's reassuring to know that even that doesn't do it. It's not like you can get the right person in front of you and say the right series of words, and all of a sudden they're going to understand. It's not the case, and I've never been so sure of that. People's worldviews are heavily impacted by what made them successful, particularly when they're at these high decision-making levels. And when you're saying things that hurt someone's self-image or how they made money or how they look at the world, people will do almost anything to cognitively correct and protect the way that they view themselves. So it's almost impossible to do that collar shaking without the result being, oh, you're a desperate, failing business. I totally hear you. Wish I could help. And like the more indignant you get about opportunity or whatever it might be, the more you look like you're flailing and you're the problem. In which case, every single time I do this, it doesn't, like, the place I get to is like, I have to be more successful. Like, the only way that I can have these conversations is that I am so undeniably fucking successful that they feel like they missed out. And I am not there. And basically anything that I say doesn't matter. And I'm saying this as like a very broad day, but it is a very broad day. People's constructs of how they make decisions and how they write checks is based on a very specific worldview of how they made money and how they became successful. And to break that is very, very hard for people's ego. It's very hard for the way they view themselves in the world. And people don't like to make those changes. So right now, I would say I'd have to go back and shake the collars when I'm saying, see, you missed out. But I assure you that at that point in time, I'm going to come back and tell you that even that didn't matter. They said I was the outlier now. And that, like, this is not how it goes in most cases. Like, it's just going to be something else. So I wish I had a better answer, but I really do think the answer has to be one individual at a time deciding not to put the person on the other side of the table through a hell that they can stop. And that is hard. I mean, I think I did it at one small, tiny scale. I hope I can do it many, many more times, but so many people have to make that decision for things to change. And it needs to be people with a lot more power making those types of decisions.
I love that. For real, because that was a great thing. So it sounds to me that we really, I think one of the biggest things to take from this is that we all need to take responsibility for how we're going to interact with this chain. There's, you have an idea, you foster your own risk appetite, your own desire to make a change. You find your people around you, you create a group, your peers, your mentors, and then we all just have to have it in mind to fight our way to the top while helping each other, so that, as you said, it's one by one, proving out that women founded companies, women founders, women entrepreneurs are a great investment, know what they're doing. And it's, it's really just throwing stones at the glass ceiling a little bit by helping each other up.
I don't want that to be the answer. I think we actually need people with power at higher levels that are breaking down the cycle and not like, there are funds, for example, very large funds that are set up for female entrepreneurs. Have they been deployed? And what was the process that they actually put someone through? And did they give better than market terms? Because the market does not give good freaking terms. So those better be better than market terms if we're going to actually be the ones that are helping right now. Or are they followers? And I think that the challenge is that's like just one example. And, those are usually public funds, which, I wish this didn't even have to come from the public sector. Like, I wish it could come from the private sector. But how do we find those private sector champions that aren't just going to say, I want to do a pitch day or I want to do mentorship, that are actually going to say, like, yes, now, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be that thing that that person needs. And I think it's possible, but at the end of the day, most people will sit in a room and say, almost everyone will sit in a room and say yes to the theory. But when it actually comes to it, that's not how it plays out. And it's never, ever easy to point to it as sexism or lack of opportunity or anything. It's always, there's always a gaslighty way that you can make it sound like it was that particular person or that particular situation so that everyone's actions at the time are completely defensible. So how do we change it? We need people of massive decision-making power to start deciding different quickly with real capital. And in lieu of that, let's start deciding the decisions we can decide now quickly and not put people through processes that actually waste time and waste money.
I think it's really easy to get discouraged and feel like there's everything up against you, but I think we all have choices we can make every single day, whether you're looking for funding, whether you're a funder, whether you're just starting out. I think there's these, but every time we do an act of kindness, every time we uplift someone, every time we use our voice, I think that's an opportunity to start turning the tide. And is that we don't want it to be just individual stones thrown at the glass ceiling, but I think if we all start throwing them, then that really creates a critical mass. And I really have to cling to this as a thought of hope, because things are hard in all kinds of ways right now, and we need to have these images of how things are going to change, especially in the future. We might have, Catherine's fought so hard over the last years. I've had a taste of it. There's so many amazing, experienced leaders in this room. So trying to keep it on the positive, hopeful note.
But I honestly do think like there's so many miracles required for a startup to work. Like there's so many places where hard work and luck have to meet. And I call it building your surface area for luck. It was something from one of the partners at Y Combinator. Like the way that you get lucky is you build immense surface area that like you're doing so many things, you're moving so fast, you're working so hard that at some point luck has got to run into you. And I think that as women, we might need to build more surface area, but at some point, can you create enough surface area that luck finds you? And I also think that like it's okay to want hands to come down and help make the journey easier. And it's okay to try to create those types of experiences artificially through accelerators and through programs and all of these types of things where you're trying to create these miraculous moments for startups, because I assure you there isn't a successful company in the world that didn't have at least one, if not 10 hands reach down and pick it up at some point in that company's journey. And it does happen that if you're in a place like Silicon Valley, if you have a network of other founders around you that were all funded, or you came out of Facebook, those hands are just closer by. They're easier, they're more accessible, and they're gonna drag you out of the hard problems. Generally, as female founders, particularly Canadian female founders, we don't have that same access to network. We don't have those same soft places to land, and we have to create them because it does take a lot of luck and a lot of miracles for any startup to succeed. And we need to create a lot of surface area for that luck to happen. And then we have to help each other to make sure that those moments really do happen.
Amazing. I mean, I don't even know a follow up to that, because I think that's a great, like the best takeaway is like creating that surface area by reaching out and bringing people together to understand, and even just asking for help. I think that was one of the biggest takeaways for me too.
Like, I mean, you've probably had 1,000 coffees in the last 2 years to create a surface area for someone to help you. And some of them might have gone somewhere, some of them might have gone nowhere, but like, had you not gone first to the Mars Women in Tech thing and then signed up for the U of T thing and then reached out to have coffee with me, like we never would have collided. And like, that's you creating surface area. And like, that might have been that only literally 0.001% of the things that you did ended up creating a collision of luck, but you had to do that like spray and pray basically to like try to get to the point where that luck would happen. And I think that it's a little bit exhausting because as female founders, I think we have to do a lot more of that. And you have to create so much surface area, but I at least look at it as like, at the end of the day, it's probability. And can you create, enough opportunities where it is likely that something will happen?
That's awesome. And thank you. Thank you for sharing. So many amazing insights. I think it's, again, such a learning experience. And I mean, from walking through the factory and talking broadly, it's really shown me that anything is truly possible. And if you want to vertically integrate, and I know manufacturing and doing it here locally is so important. It really was like being, Charlie in the chocolate factory, just seeing how one process leads to the next. Everything was so big, so ambitious, and it's been such a learning experience, like a hardcore education, and really dreaming as big as you possibly can. And if there's a process that you need for your vertical integration, you find the engineer and you build it. And I think that even from day one has been super cool. And I think I look forward to learning more and to see you see your risk in us grow and how it can help other people. Because I could really think too, is like, oh my gosh, I hope I can help someone else one day to do this, as excited as I was. When you receive someone like seeing you and understanding you and then helping you all the same time, it was very overwhelming. And so I think it's now created even bigger surface area for me to want to help others and share this story and inspire other people to help and uplift in every way they can.
And it really does, like, when someone actually helps, like, it shouldn't be so surprising and so emotional. But I think in an entrepreneurial journey, it's actually so rare, like so rare. I could maybe point to like a couple times in my career where it's like, oh my God, this person didn't need to do that, and like that genuinely is the help that I need. And we need to get to the point where that's the default, not like so rare in these journeys.
And I hope a point of pride that I truly hope like you feel good about being able to do that, and that as much as you say you're not at the pinnacle of success, I think that's a huge marker of success, that you are able to say like, yeah, I can do that. I think that was like such a super boss move to be able to do that. I mean, biased opinion since I was on the receiving end of it, but I think that's super exciting to grow to the position where you can make decisions quickly and then have the support of this incredible team. You talked about how important it is to have the team, but I really have to say there's a lot to learn there about picking genius, kind, super cool, super interested, dedicated people. And I think that's been a really fun part of getting to know SRTX too, is that there's so many great minds there. And so, that's more of a comment on how much I enjoy working there. But like I can see the support and the shared vision. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And I think like in terms of building a team and doing this, I think like one of the things on the surface area for luck philosophy, and it's Dalton Caldwell that first came up with it, is that as you grow, you need to bring people onto the team that also shared this philosophy of building surface area for luck. So they're also moving really fast. They're also trying lots of different things. And I assure you that is not the default. Most people like to have one streamlined way of working, and we're trying one thing at a time. And doing that does not create surface area for luck. So I think getting the right people that are philosophically aligned for us was a huge challenge. It's not an easy way to work. It's not easy to do 100 things and have one work. It's actually quite demoralizing. But it's necessary if you're trying to create that surface area for luck. So how do you find people that I would say are willing to like go into work and bang their head against the wall for the chance of something working? And those are very special people. And you can eventually find them, but like that's a little bit the startup journey. If it were easy, it would probably already exist. Like a lot of it is about doing those hard, uncomfortable things that create newness in the world, and build things that didn't exist before. And that also becomes your competitive advantage. And you have to love that. Like you have to love it being hard. You have to love the challenge. And if you don't, you're probably in the wrong line of work. It's very much about problem solving. And you might solve today's problem, but in 3 years, there'll be a different set of problems, and you still have to love problem solving. So I think, you know, I mean that in a very inspiring way, in the sense that, like, if you love solving problems and doing new hard things, there's no better thing in the world to do than startups. But if you're looking for a path to money, or a path to ego, or a path to something you can talk about to other people, like, this is so totally the wrong thing for you to do. Because 99.99% of the time you will be failing, deeply, truly failing, and then something will go a little bit forward. And that will be what matters more than the 99 steps behind it. So yeah, if you love hard and you love solving problems and you want to build something and be able to look at and be like, that exists because I and my team did it, that's why you should do startups.
Amazing. On that amazing note, we'll conclude the fireside chat. Thank you, Catherine. We do have a few minutes for Q&A, and just like the panel, we do have the microphone just there if anyone would like to come up and ask a question.
Hello, and thank you so much. My name is Michelle. I'm a wardrobe consultant here in Ottawa, and I dress people all over the city and outside, so using your products as well, so thank you. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being real. Thank you for not trying to sugarcoat everything. People have told me a million times that what I was trying to do in Ottawa was not possible. And just hearing your spirit of resilience and being so kind to other people, and even not torturing Stephanie and making sure that she had opportunities, I can't tell you how much I resonate with that and how beautiful that is, because I try to do the same with my employees, and they're like, wow, you strive for excellence, you're very firm, but you're nice. I'm like, I suffered. I don't want you to suffer. Like, I'm here to make this a beautiful experience, because I feel like I had to climb on garbage to get to where I am. And I'm just starting. I'm like a little minuscule person in this big space. But thank you. That's all I wanted to say. You're so inspirational. Thank you for being real. We don't have enough of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much, and for being so vulnerable as well. I'm CTO of a startup, and we're currently hiring, and we have like some staff as well. And what you said about paper cuts was really real, especially being in the engineering side of things. Do you have any suggestions that you use in terms of handling those, like asking yourself what is like honest feedback and what's not? And then versus like the hiring process, do you include anything that helps try to bring those people that are closest to you and will help you grow in that process? Yeah.
So I think my first question would be, what's the company so people can go work there? And then the second question would be, where are the paper cuts coming from? Are they inside the team, or are they external stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first one is Amuse. Come check us out. We're hiring for a developer right now. And the second one is, it's more internals. Like, it's among other developers usually, where it's like a very, like, I am against programming, like hard no. But once in a while, they'll be like, just a little thing that I'm like, I don't think you would have said that if I was a male, you know? And I know I do my job well. Like, I hear it from shareholders, I hear it from investors, I hear it from my board, but I don't know how to necessarily foster that downwards.
So I think inside your company, you deserve to feel incredibly safe and incredibly empowered, and you shouldn't tolerate the behavior flat out. You should call it out privately to the person on the side, explain what they said, the impact that it had on you in terms of how you interpreted it, and say that, you know, you're in a powerful role within the company and you're receiving this from them, you don't even want to know what other people could potentially be receiving from them that are not necessarily in your role, and that this is not tolerated behavior at your company. And if you see it again, they will be terminated. Like, I would flat out do it, and then I would actually act. I would do it. And I think that you should also, I used to think that like core values were kind of bullshit, because most of the time they are. Most of the time people set up bullshit like, oh, you know, we're collaborative and we're fun and I don't know. But like actually decide, not just you, but like with your co-founders or your executive teams, like the best people in your company, what are the values that they have? And like maybe it's really important because you're already seeing this appear in your culture, that there is some sort of value around you know, being an ally or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it would be within your company, but look at the people that you definitely don't get this vibe off of, and like, what is it that they have that this other person doesn't have? And it might be no ego, right? Like that could be how it's interpreted within your company. And then I would talk about that loudly at, you know, weekly company meetings, and how you promote, and how you fire, and how you give raises, and talk about these values as being really important, and talk about it in your hiring process. You know, be very explicit about, you know, these are behaviors that are loved within our company values, and then these are behaviors that are not acceptable within our company values, and just talk about it a lot, and then actually hire, fire, and promote based on those values.
Amazing. Thank you.
So my question is for those of us who are solopreneurs and we don't have the luxury of surrounding ourselves with the ideal team. I'm curious to know, if you were to be a solopreneur, what kind of advisors and consultants or traits would you surround yourself with to still get a bit of brainstorming, just to check your own thinking, but also get the right advice? So what would you be looking for as a solopreneur?
So I don't have to think too hard. I wasn't on my previous business, and I'd say that like there are certainly pros and cons to both versions of the world. That said, I will say that because it was my second time at least the venture side of the game, I think I had a lot more confidence to be a solo entrepreneur in this time in my life. But I'd say that the ways that I close the emotion, I would say like, it's actually like, you know, like an emotional support stuffed toy. Like that's kind of what a co-founder is a little bit. Like they're there to hug, to cry with, to like get through it with. It's like super important. And yes, you can divide and conquer, but as the company grows, usually you can hire for those types of executive type roles. But in the early stages, it's literally just someone that's gonna like make sure you get through the freaking shit show that is starting a business. So how did I fill those emotional gaps? There's a few different ways, but I'd say at first it starts off with like friends that are also founders that are also kind of alone in their journey in those early days. Accelerators are probably the best possible way that you can create a community of those types of people. And you should definitely use them as sounding boards for ideas and things that you're thinking of. So for me, we went through Y Combinator, we went through Creative Destruction Lab, I went through OCAD, had a little incubator at the time. And in my last business, I went through lots of accelerators as well. So like, I'm a huge fan of accelerators as a way of building that sort of community. You're going to get a little bit of mentor whiplash when you get lots of ideas, but sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes it's not. You just have to be able to decide, you know, what's your path that you want to follow. So in the earliest stages, that, and then what I also realized about myself is that I always need a person in the company that's like my person. I only realized this about myself a few years in, but basically if you go to every single part of this journey, there was always a person whose role was kind of to like be in most meetings with me. And now we call that my chief of staff. But in the early days, sometimes it was the CFO, sometimes it was just employee number one, sometimes it was whoever, but there was always just like a person who for that point in time in the company most of their time was spent being in most meetings with me. And after every meeting, we would usually like chat about it afterwards. What do you think? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And we would like have this. And I like really needed that thinking partner to be able to go through. Honestly, I will say what has been hugely helpful, and this might sound a little bit crazy, in the last year, ChatGPT has kind of become this for me. And I actually mean this like kind of seriously, in that I used to need a human that I could download almost everything that was happening in my day to that person so that I could have a conversation with them that didn't really involve their ideas. It was more like me trying to think through, and like my co-founder used to be that in my old business, and I'm not trying to trivialize the importance of this person. They have to be wicked smart. They have to be on their game. They have to be pretty phenomenal, but they have to be there in a supporting capacity. They have to be there with the goal of trying to make your thinking better. And that can take a wicked smart, think executive coach, whoever you want to think. Like they got to be really on. And I started using ChatGPT as this last summer. And it's way freaking better than a person. Like it does rely on you giving it really good context though. So you have to be able to be very clear and then like very clear about your questions. But oftentimes I can get more value out of that little conversation than I used to get when it was a human in the room with me all the time. So I think in that way, this idea of the person that follows me around all the time is becoming less of a thing in the last year than it was before, which I think is just fascinating. So if you can't afford a human to be in the room with you all the time, like honestly make ChatGPT your co-founder and chat through it. And I assure you they're way better than like the above average human that you might find otherwise. So yeah.
Hello, Katherine. Thank you so much for the information you shared. One thing that I love about the information you shared is really how raw and authentic you are when you give the information. Just because as a founder, as a CEO in business, we always go through roller coaster. So hearing you saying that, hey, there's no need for more limitation when we want to help is really refreshing. I mean, I went through different people and asked, where's the door? And they say, oh, we don't really have a door of entrance. We just talk to people and whoever get lucky. So that's not really ideal, but it is what it is outside. My question is really about exploring your mindset, if you don't mind me asking. So you started a journey and you are in a place where there is a little bit more success, more success perhaps. But I want to explore, how did you embrace the mindset shift in each milestone in your journey? I'm pretty sure at the beginning, probably more rougher. You had challenges, pushback, or maybe people who did not believe in you, even when you started creating a team and speaking with different people. But then in the journey, different things change. I'm just trying to explore, how did it start from maybe the start with your own experience to where you are now? Somebody told me it's not about what you see, what you do, or what you touch. It's more about what is inside your mind that can lead you to success. So I just want to explore that part.
Yeah, like what I would say is that my business is a very 0 to 1 business. And what I mean by that is that our unit economics relied on us setting up a fully vertically integrated production in order to hit unit economics that could allow us to be a mass market product. We finally set up that vertical integration and got it up and running in December. That has to get fully up and running, which is going to take 18 months to be producing at the cost to produce that we require for the business to be break even and then hopefully profitable. So everything from 0 to 1 is messy, it's hard, it's undervalued, and it almost is worse the closer you get to 1, because it's also you have more sunk cost in terms of like the time and effort that you put in this. And if it doesn't get to one, what the hell were you doing? So what I would say is that mentally, I think in the beginning, I kept tricking myself that one was around the corner, like that it was going to be next fall, and then it was going to be next fall, and then it was going to be next fall. And I think I've started to realize that that is maybe not the case, although I'm pretty sure it's this fall now, so maybe I'm still tricking myself. I think playing mental games with yourself is not a bad idea. Like, it is certainly a coping mechanism to look at the next accomplishment, because if you're on a 10-year journey and you're always about that thing that's going to happen in 10 years, and you're probably going to give up. So you have to kind of break it down into these smaller milestones that you can still get excited about along the way. So like tricking yourself a little bit along the way is like one way of doing it. There also like come harder times where literally just like the accomplishment is still being in the game. Like, I have not given up. The longer I'm in the game, as long as I stay in the game, we will succeed. And you know, Y Combinator does a lot of writing about this. Basically, the way a startup succeeds is not dying. Like, that's the actual answer. And it is way harder to do in practice because, like you said, at the end of the day, it's a mental game to not bow out. And so there are definitely days where like I'm willing to applaud myself for literally just still being there. Yeah, and I think that the other half of it is take mental breaks when you can. So like take 6 weeks off and like be truly off. Like allow people on your team to do that as well, because it is a marathon. And you might try to sprint really, 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 really long for a while, but you will burn out. It will be messy. It'll be ugly. And that might be what inspires you to take your first vacation. But try to do it before that if you can. And then surround yourself with other people that have been there and understand. And then I think like part of the mental games you have to play with yourself is also telling yourself that like, would you actually want to be doing something else? Like, I think that's one that I like really struggle with as well, because it's like, I know I could be happier doing other things, but I also think I would be deeply unfulfilled. And so there's a lot of time in my life where my brain, where I'm like, okay, if I come out of this with nothing, will it still have been worth it? Will I still be glad that I stayed? If I come out of this, you know, having won, I'm sure I'm gonna like rewrite the narrative that it was all worth it. So that one's easy. But I think it's the version where you don't come out winning. That is the one that you have to be okay with, and you have to figure out why are you okay with that, and why is that better than you lying on a beach. And you got to have an answer that's convincing.
I love that. Thank you very much.
Yes, just want to also say thank you for being so real, both of you ladies, and your journey. It's very encouraging. And being a woman and a mother, you really have to fight 3-4 times harder. My question is in regards to manufacturing in Canada. How did you, fight this very patriarchal world and refusing the urge of maybe manufacturing outside for maybe a cheaper cost? That's it. Yeah.
So I accidentally ended up manufacturing and accidentally ended up manufacturing in Canada. So I did have a background in manufacturing, so I wasn't afraid of manufacturing. I will say I probably didn't fully understand it though. And then when we were in the very early days, I was doing my prototyping in China, and the prototyping cycles were 2 to 4 weeks because you'd have to send information, they'd have to build the samples, then they'd ship you the samples. And for me, this just got very frustrating that everything was taking a month. And I just had this machine in front of me. Couldn't we have done like the last 6 months in like a day? Like, this is not actually that long to do each thing. So it first started out with being, let's just get 1 or 2 machines that we can do our prototyping here so that prototyping can be faster. And then we realized that what we wanted to do required a lot of retrofitting on those machines. And it actually was quite complicated, and there was a lot of waste, and there were all these different problems. And that if we actually had someone do it overseas, they would have to solve all these problems. And then we wouldn't own the IP to solving these problems. And then secondly, like, would they actually solve the problems? We weren't really sure. So we decided to actually finish the prototyping ourselves in-house. And then I realized pretty quickly that our little lab was not going to be able to expand into full-scale production. We didn't have the talent that could do commercial scale. We didn't have the access to mechanics, the knitting technicians, all the different things that we needed. Didn't have a dye house. There were so many problems. And at that point in time, Gildan was offshoring their hosiery plant in Montreal. And we basically took the opportunity to take over all of the equipment in their plant and a lot of their people back in 2019, going from about a 2,000 square foot factory to 120,000 square foot factory overnight. And it was a crazy idea that made absolutely no sense on a spreadsheet. But I believed that if we were going to build the big version of the company, this had to work, basically. And if it didn't work, we probably never were going to get to that next version anyway. So it was absolute chaos taking over this new factory. And we learned a lot. And what I would say is that if I were restarting this business today, it would not cost the same amount as it did when I started this business. But I think that that's inherent to anything that has a lot of research and development, because you spend a lot of time trying versions of things that don't work. And at the end of the day, that's where your intellectual property is built. That's sometimes where your brand is built in a lot of these different expenses. And of course, if you are doing something that's heavily research and development and you had perfect foresight, the research budget will be lower, obviously. So I could equate that to, well, we could have been smarter and we could have spent the money differently. But I actually think that to get to where we are right now, which I believe is the right version for not just us, but for how apparel manufacturing should be set up in the future, the only way to this outcome was the journey that we went through. So I know that's a long-winded way of saying it, but I'd say that not everyone should make their own product. If you have no IP, if there's no way that you can produce it at a cost that is better than you can get it overseas, you probably shouldn't produce it. But I would also say, why not try to go into a business where you do have defensibility and where you do have some strategic advantage where some other random factory somewhere else in the world can't produce it cheaper. So I would actually just say, why do that business at all if someone else can make it? Why not pick something else?
Awesome. Thank you.
Why is everyone laughing? I grabbed it to cut off the questions. I don't have a question. While I make my way around, let's give a round of applause for our fireside chat, Stephanie and Katherine. And if you were here last year, we had some special guests that came up at the end last year, and they are back by popular demand. So I'm going to stay off the stage for our guests who are going to come up and say a few words. But these are the future of entrepreneurs. I think we all have people that are watching this event right now. I've gotten texts from 2 colleagues with babies at home, and they're showing these young, very young women watching this. But we have some ones in person that are going to speak to you guys. So I want to welcome up Isla, Melina, and Sonya here.
Hello and bonjour. My name is Sohana Milan. I'm Nalina. I'm Isla. And we are so excited to be back here at Bayview Yards. We want to say a big thank you to Katherine and Stephanie for sharing their stories today. When I think about an entrepreneur, I think it takes courage and resilience, just like a superhero. C'est exactement ce que je veux être quand je devenir C'est exactement ce que je veux devenir quand je serai grande.
I saw what you posted on LinkedIn, Catherine. I think it's really brave and determined. I can see how brave and determined you are. It's inspiring to hear how honest and open you are about your challenges. Vous êtes un vrai bataillante, et nous vous aimerons beaucoup. When I think about being an entrepreneur, I think about someone who overcomes obstacles with determination.
We also loved hearing about how you help other founders like Stephanie. Your support and encouragement shows how important it is to lift each other up. Votre histoire nous montre comment la générosité et la collaboration sont puissantes dans le monde des affaires. Vous êtes un vraiment bon exemple de comment on peut réussir ensemble. On se soutenait les uns les autres.
Speaking of inspiring women, let's talk about Invest Ottawa CEO, Sonya. Sonya shows us how important strong women leaders are and how they help shape a better world for everyone. Tu as l'air comme un leader fantastique. Stephanie, I had the honor of hearing you pitch at Chiboot last year. As an entrepreneur myself, I found it very empowering. J'espère que tout va bien.
Thank you again, Catherine and Stephanie, and happy International Women's Month.
Okay, I'm going to get you guys to shuffle off, but don't go far because we're going to do a quick photo after. If you're looking at your watch, you know that I've lost my job as MC. But we finish, okay? So we're a little over time, which is fine. Some folks were headed off to Ladies Who Launch Networking. So if you're part of that, you are going to find Avery, who's going to be in the main lobby, or she's waving right there. She's closer than the main lobby. You can go find Avery for that. In terms of lunch, so there's lunch on the side by Delights by Mama. There's going to be networking here. So if you're able to stick around, please do so. If you want to take a photo with this on stage or the light box out there, please also do so. And then last thing I'll just say is thank you for joining us today. If you're not able to attend any other events this month, a big thing you can do to support these events is just share on your social, help get the word out. It's interesting times on the internet when you're trying to post about these events. So if you're able to share other events in the community, that is a big helper for all of the community organizers. And thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you later this month with more events. Thank you. So I'll get speakers on stage for a photo, please.